Chapter 533. Even better? The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was stunned. Instead of answering his daughter, he sighed and said, "Tung Qing Shan, I didn't expect that even I would be fooled by him." Interesting, interesting. Pei Shiwilian didn't understand what her father was thinking. In this world, there were probably only a few people who could understand Pei San's thoughts. On the morning of the 5th day of the 9th month, in the newly built western courtyard of Tung Jia village, Little Blue's mother still has to go back. Tung Qingshan looked at Little Blue's mother and Little Blue, who were conversing with each other. Although he really wanted Little Blue's mother to stay, he couldn't force her. Suddenly, Little Blue's mother looked at Tung Qingshan and emitted a cry. Tung Qingshan looked at Li Jun. Qingshan, Little Blue's mother said that she will leave her child here. However, she definitely doesn't want anything to happen to Little Blue. If something happens, don't blame her for being heartless. Li Jun's expression changed slightly when she heard this. However, Tung Qingshan wasn't angry at all. He could feel Little Blue's mother's concern for Little Blue, so he smiled and nodded at her. Little Blue's mother glanced at Tung Qingshan, but didn't say anything. Screech, after stretching out her wings and lightly patting the undying phoenix, Little Blue's mother slightly flapped her wings. She, who was bathed in flames, immediately rose into the air and rapidly flew towards the north. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into the horizon. She left. Zhuge Yuan Hong, who had been silent at the side, said softly, "Yes, she left." Tung Qingshan said with a nod. When Little Blue's mother was here, she was like a stabilizing force. There was no need to worry at all. After all, she was an existence that could instantly kill an emptiness realm culmination expert. In Tung Qingshan's opinion, this Little Blue's mother was extremely talented. In addition, she had reached the limit of demonic beasts, emptiness realm culmination, and had received guidance from an omnipotent expert. She could be said to be the #1 existence among emptiness realm demonic beasts. Even insightful emptiness realm experts like Pei San and Qin Shiqi would have a headache if they met such an existence. With Little Blue's mother around, no one would dare to cause trouble. But when Little Blue's mother left, in the future, I'll need Little Blue and I to hold the fort together, Tung Qingshan said to himself. The 9 prefectures are vast, and there are as many experts as there are clouds. The Heavenly God Palace, the Mani Temple, and the Emperor Yu's Hall were all eyeing them covetously. No matter what, if I want to conquer the 9 prefectures, I must first occupy the whole of Yangzhou. Although Tung Qingshan was confident, he was not arrogant. Mani Temple, the #1 sect. The Ying family and the Heavenly God Palace, which had insightful emptiness realm experts, were very powerful. Emperor Yu's Hall was the most ancient sect. Although Tung Qingshan didn't know its trump cards, he knew that it must have a powerful trump card. Otherwise, how could Emperor Yu's Hall have existed for so long? Rice must be eaten bite by bite, and the road must be walked step by step. He wanted to conquer the country and spread the internal martial art. This was just the beginning. In the depths of Tung Qingshan's heart, Yangzhou alone was obviously not enough to satisfy him. However, he was not strong enough to conquer the Great Prairie, Qingzhou, and Yuzhou like Pei San did. On the 3rd day of the 9th month, the army of the Gui Yuan sect set out. All the sects in the 9 prefectures had their eyes on this place. The strength of the Gui Yuan sect's long gang army made people's hearts tremble. They destroyed everything along the way. Very little time was spent on attacking cities and seizing strongholds. Most of the time was spent on traveling, as well as controlling the county cities that they had conquered. On the 12th of the 9th month, they conquered Shuyang County City. On the 28th of the 9th month, they conquered Fengshan County City. On the 11th of the 10th month, they conquered Tianan County City. On the 28th of the 10th month, they conquered the northernmost city of Chu County. In the northern part of Yangzhou, including Jiangning County, there were a total of 6 big county cities. In the past 2 months, they had been completely controlled by the Gui Yuan sect. This destructive attack caused the entire land of the 9 prefectures to exclaim in surprise. For a time, Everywhere in the land of the 9 prefectures, people talked about the Gui Yuan sect and the legendary Tung Shan. The Gui Yuan sect rose up in one day and occupied half of Yangzhou. As for Tung Shan, he fled and disappeared for 4 years. Once he returned, he changed his name to Jing Yi and did many great things. It wasn't until Tung Shan's identity was exposed that people in the world knew. No wonder Jing Yi went to find trouble with Qinghu Island. Qinghu Island had chased Tung Shan all over the world to kill him. How could Tung Shan not take revenge? Now, the revenge had come. As the storytellers in the streets, alleys, and restaurants wrote many stories about Tung Shan, imagining Tung Shan's experiences during the 4 years of disappearance. Each and every one of them spoke with their saliva flying everywhere. In the land of the 9 prefectures, many youths and youngsters who dreamed of being heroes had a goal in their hearts. Tung Shan. He was an unprecedented figure. He had almost single-handedly overturned the super sect Qinghu Island. In the hot-blooded land of the 9 prefectures, heroes emerged in large numbers. It was obvious that in this era, all the heroes were shrouded in the light of Tung Shan. There was no other reason. Tung Shan's light was too dazzling. Anyone who understood the meaning of the emptiness realm exclaimed in admiration. Late at night, in the gloomy study room in Lu City, the black-clothed blind man and Tai Pan sat opposite each other. In just 2 months, the blind swordmaster's voice was hoarse, and his body trembled slightly. In just 2 months, Qinghu Island lost half of its territory. Tai Pan, what's going on? How could the Gui Yuan sect obtain the other 5 counties so easily? Didn't I ask you to secretly counterattack their garrison troops? Martial ancestor. Tai Pan's eyes turned red. Chu County, north of Yangzhou, belonged to Tai Hall. Qinghu Island massacred Tai Hall, and many people in Chu County hated us. Originally, we could have controlled Chu County in a few decades. However, the time was too short. We wanted to hide in Chu County and counterattack. We couldn't do it. Xi'an County and Tianan County were just conquered not long ago. As for Fengshan County and the other 2 counties, they have been under Qinghu Island's control for a long time. However, they're north of Yangzhou. Qinghu Island's control is weak. Moreover, the Gui Yuan sect left 30,000 men in these 2 counties. In addition, they recruited and incorporated the local troops. It will be very difficult for us to counterattack by relying on the hidden troops. The veins on Tai Pan's forehead throbbed. Moreover, that bastard, Zhuge Yuanhong, set up a punishment system. Once one of the soldiers in the army rebelled, then the entire 100-man squad he was in would be punished together with him. They would be sentenced to a lifetime of hard labor or death. Being sentenced to a lifetime of hard labor was even more terrifying than death. Punished? The blind sword master took a deep breath. This Zhuge Yuanhong is really ruthless. If one person rebelled, then the entire 100-man team would be executed. This would cause everyone in the 100-man team to supervise each other. They wouldn't dare to slack off. Normally, the punishment system would cause the people under control to be very disgusted. It would only be implemented during times of turmoil. However, martial ancestor, don't worry. Tai Pan's voice was deep. Qinghu Island's control in the north of Yangzhou is weak. However, in the south of Yangzhou, Qinghu Island's control is iron. With over 1,000 years of operation, many clans of Qinghu Island have long penetrated into Wuhan County, Nanshan County, and other places. Moreover, the Gui Yuan sect stationed a total of 60,000 troops in Fengshan County and the other 2 counties. In addition, Tianan County and the other 2 counties have stationed 10,000 troops each. In other words, they spent 90,000 troops to station in 5 counties. How many troops does Jiangning County have in total? Even if the Long Gang Guards are powerful and can conquer a county city, what do they rely on to control the city? A cold light flashed in Tai Pan's eyes. 7 counties in the south. If they send 1 person, our 7 counties can swallow 1 person. Unless they have 1,000,000 troops, the pitiful troops of Jiangning County are not enough to swallow the 7 counties. Asterisk, 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 having half of their territory taken away, Qinghu Island was naturally furious. They were also waiting to have a showdown with the Gui Yuan sect in the 7 counties in the south. November 1st. Heavy snowflakes as thick as goose feathers descended, draping the entire Great Yin Mountain in a layer of silver. Qingshan, Tung Qingshan, who was slowly executing the moves of the spear art, suddenly stopped and turned his head to look over. Li Jun, dressed in a snow-white fur coat, was walking over with a smile. Li Jun's abdomen was now clearly bulging. "What did you buy in city?" Tung Qingshan put down his long spear. "I bought some food and necessities." Li Jun ran over and grabbed Tung Qingshan's hand. "Qingshan, when I was in city today, I heard many people in the tea house talking about you, Qingshan. Moreover, many people from other counties have brought their children to Jiangning's Gui Yuan sect to send them over. They want to join our Gui Yuan sect. Talking about me and sending their children to Gui Yuan sect." Tung Qingshan was stunned. "The people of East City are very proud. They all say that you, Qingshan, are from East City and praise you to the heavens." Li Jun couldn't help but laugh happily. Of course, she was happy when people praised her husband. Tung Qingshan also couldn't help but laugh. Since ancient times, East City had never produced any extraordinary people. However, Tung Qingshan's existence was obviously worthy of the people of East City's pride. Even thousands of years later, the people of East City could still say, "Our city is Tung Qingshan's hometown." "Qingshan." A person walked over from afar. It was Zhuge Yuanhong. "Little June, go into the house and rest first," Tung Qingshan said. Li Jun nodded obediently and entered the house. Tung Qingshan walked towards his teacher. "Teacher." "Yes, Qingshan." "The Longgang army is now rushing back from Chu County at the fastest speed. They will probably be back tomorrow afternoon." Zhuge Yuanhong said, "Previously, I sent out an army of 100,000. Almost all of them have been arranged in the 5 counties. They are busy reorganizing the armies of the 5 counties and purging the rebels within the 5 counties, firmly grasping these 5 counties." Tung Qingshan listened and nodded. "Teacher, then when will we attack the 7 counties in the south?" Tung Qingshan asked. Tung Qingshan didn't care about Qinghu Island at all. What kind of height one stood at, what kind of world one saw. In the past, Tung Qingshan wholeheartedly wanted to deal with Qinghu Island, thinking that Qinghu Island was a colossus. However, after experiencing several Emptiness Realm battles, in his eyes, Qinghu Island was just a paper tiger. The real threat was still the Mani Temple, which was hidden very well. The always mysterious Emperor Yu's Hall, the well-behaved Ing family, and the most arrogant heavenly god palace. His future opponents would be these. Qinghu Island wasn't much of a challenge. Attack the 7 counties in the south. Zhuge Yuanhong shook his head. Chapter 534. Teacher, what do you mean? Seeing Zhuge Yuanhong's expression, Tung Qingshan was slightly puzzled. Suddenly, he thought of something and said, "Teacher, are you worried about the Heavenly God Palace?" The Heavenly God Palace had always been ambitious and wanted to attack Yangzhou. "No." Zhuge Yuanhong smiled confidently and said, "Qingshan, the Heavenly God Palace is not a fool. Now, even the Undying Phoenix is on Qingshan's side. Even Emperor Yu's Hall suffered a great loss. The Heavenly God Palace will not be so unwise. After all, the Heavenly God Palace does not have a demonic beast that can surpass the Undying Phoenix in speed. They can't even surpass the blade-like Qi in drilling. If they fight to the death with us, it will be very disadvantageous for the Heavenly God Palace," Zhuge Yuanhong said with certainty. Tung Qingshan nodded. He thought so too. However, then why does teacher seem to have doubts about attacking the 7 counties in the south? Zhuge Yuanhong smiled and said, "Qingshan, the Gui Yuan sect does have the upper hand now. However, don't forget that the south is different from the north. Qinghu Island was originally in the south of Yangzhou. Among the 6 counties in the north of Yangzhou, Jiangning County belongs to the Gui Yuan sect, and Chu County belongs to Tai Hall. Xi'an County and Tianan County were not united back then. For out of the 6 counties in the north are like this. It can be seen that Qinghu Island's control over the north is weak. Tung Qingshan nodded. However, Qinghu Island is deeply rooted in the 7 counties in the south of Yangzhou. We can't use the method of attacking the 5 counties in the north against these 7 counties in the south, Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly. Teacher, what's your plan? Tung Qingshan asked. Advance step by step. A fierce glint flashed in Zhuge Yuanhong's eyes. With the Long Gang guards as the main force and the men of the Tai on mountain range as support. Take down 1 or 2 counties in one go. Then carry out a purge, a bloody purge. Anyone who rebelled or colluded with the enemy would be captured and sent to work as laborers for the rest of their lives, or their entire families would be executed. No mercy. Zhuge Yuanhong's voice startled Tung Qingshan. He understood what his master meant. Once his master gave the order, thousands of heads would fall. However, that was the way to fight for hegemony. This was especially true for the Gui Yuan sect. When they were at a disadvantage in terms of manpower, they could not be merciful. Otherwise, it would only leave behind a huge problem. If we, the Gui Yuan sect, want to build a foundation that will last for 1,000 years. Now we can't show mercy, Zhuge Yuanhong said coldly. We can only be ruthless now and eliminate all the sprouts. Only then will there be fewer deaths in the future. Tung Qingshan nodded. Because of Zhuge Yuanhong's order, the ancient families of Qinghu Island faced a disaster. 6th November. The 10,000 soldiers of the Long Gang army, who had rested for 4 to 5 days, embarked on the journey to the south in the early morning of this day, under the escort of thousands of people from the Gui Yuan sect. Accompanying the army was the dreamy cloud martial immortal, Mu Tao. After all, Tung Qingshan was also worried that the blind sword master would suddenly appear and slaughter the Long Gang army. With Mu Tao there, Tung Qingshan was also at ease. Although the dreamy cloud martial immortal, Mu Tao, could only control 90% of the power of the heavens and earth, he was the descendant of Duanmu continent's most powerful expert, Duanmu Yu. What he learned was the Divine Codex, 9 Thunderblade Scrolls. With 90% of the power of the heavens and earth, he could exert nearly 110% of the power of the heavens and earth. Instead, he could suppress the blind sword master, Qingshan. On top of the eastern city wall of Jiangning County, Zhuge Yuanhong and Zhuge Yuanhong fought side by side, watching the long line of Long Gang army soldiers leave quickly. How are the preparations at the Tai on mountain range? My disciple, Yang Dong, is assisted by the demonic beast Whole Gale Eagle, plus the innate warrior cavalry. He easily intimidated the leaders of the few big gangs in the Tai on mountain range. Tung Qingshan said with a smile. In the face of the innate realm demonic beast and the innate warrior cavalry, the bandits indeed had no ability to resist. Plus, our Gui Yuan sect has promised them. These bandits were all very excited. How can being a bandit leader compare to being a city lord? First, they threatened them with force. Next, they lured them with high positions and generous salaries. None of those bandit leaders were fools. The 3 most powerful sects immediately agreed to it. These 3 gangs, along with the Xiongshou gang, had joined forces. The other small gangs naturally didn't dare to go against the wishes of the Xiongshou gang. Anyone who dared to go against the Xiongshou gang would be easily killed by the 500 innate warrior cavalry of the Xiongshou gang. With my disciple, the Xiongshou gang, and the 3 big gangs, the most elite bandits have an army of 200,000. As for the scattered bandits of the other small gangs, they don't have much military discipline, but their numbers are quite large, more than 500,000. Tung Qingshan shook his head and said, although their numbers are large, it's just a messy pile. It's impossible to rely on them to fight a war. But the Xiongshou gang and the 3 big gangs have gathered an army of 200,000, which is quite strong. Tung Qingshan had been to the Tai, a mountain range, several times, and had seen the habits of the bandits. The 3 big gangs, like the Nine Wolf Gang, had existed for more than 100 years, and they all understood the importance of military discipline. But those small gangs flourished today and were destroyed tomorrow. Where would they have the time to train military discipline? Enough. Zhuge Yuanhong smiled and nodded. How about this? According to the plan, first let the Longgang army take down Nanxing County and Mengfeng County in one go. Then let the Xiong Shou Gang's army of 200,000 soldiers be stationed in each county. He would turn the two counties upside down. As long as there's a threat, the hidden troops will all be eliminated. If it can't be solved, let the Longgang army help solve it. As for the scattered 500,000 bandits, don't bother with them. Zhuge Yuanhong shook his head and said, those 500,000 bandits are from various gangs of various sizes. Once they are sent to search and purge the various places, they will not be able to escape. I'm afraid it will incur the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. Zhuge Yuanhong knew that troops without military discipline would only cause trouble. On the official road next to the Tai, a mountain range, there were countless bandits and bandits. Some were carrying bags, some were carrying women, some were riding on horses, and some were wearing armor. There were even quite a few bandits with children. In short, countless bandits and bandits packed up their belongings and prepared to leave the Tai, a mountain range. Ha! Big brother, second brother, third brother. Yang Dong wore a suit of fiery gilt battle armor and rode on a cyan, mane-treading on snow horse. He seemed to be very majestic. Now that all my subordinates have gathered from today onward, we're no longer bandits and bandits. We're the city guards. Ha! Fourth brother, well said. I, Tong Tai Dao, will also become a city lord one day. Ha! A bald, brawny man with only one ear was wearing a suit of fire feather battle armor, but he didn't wear a helmet. Back then, when I went to the city, that guy surnamed Wang was so arrogant. If I hadn't escaped back to the mountains, I would have been finished off by that guy's army. Today, let's also go find that guy, surnamed Wang. Second brother, well said. Second brother, when the time comes, we'll skin that guy, surnamed Wang, alive in front of all our brothers. We'll help you vent your anger. A seemingly very scholarly middle-aged man said with a smile. Three brothers. Yang Dong smiled. It's getting late. We should set off. All right, let's go. After the leaders of the four great gangs of the Tai, a mountain range, gave the order, they left the Tai, a mountain range, in a grandiose manner. From today onward, these 200,000 people were no longer bandits and bandits. They had turned over and become city guards. In fact, many people were forced to become bandits because they had no other choice but to become bandits and bandits. If they had a good life, who would be willing to lick blood from the blade's edge? At dawn on the 8th day of the 11th month, the 10,000 soldiers of the Longgang Guard arrived at the city of Nanxing County, once again displaying their terrifying strength. Each and every one of the Longgang Guard soldiers leaped 10 zhang high and more than 10 zhang away. Each and every one of them possessed extraordinary strength. Most of them were only third-rate martial artists, and even ordinary soldiers and guards who hadn't entered the ranks of third-rate martial artists were simply unable to resist in front of the Longgang Guard soldiers. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the Nanxing County city had been captured. Speaking of which, it was strange. There weren't many people defending the Nanxing County city. There were only several tens of thousands of ordinary soldiers and guards. After conquering Nanxing County, the soldiers of the Longgang Guard stationed themselves in Nanxing County City and didn't leave. 10 days later, a majestic bandit army with Yang Dong as the leader arrived at Nanxing County City. The bandit army consisted of 100,000 people. Only then did the Longgang Guard leave and continue to advance in the southwest direction, charging toward another county city, Mengfeng County. On the 21st day of the 11th month, the Longgang Guard captured the Mengfeng County. Another bandit army of 100,000 people was stationed in the Mengfeng County. Then, with the army of 200,000 ferocious beasts as support, the troops of the Gui Yuan sect, mainly composed of 10,000 Longgang Guards, began a bloody purge in the land of these two counties. For a time, some troops hidden in the mountain villages, or a small number of elite troops hidden in the city, were discovered one by one. Nanxing County and Mengfeng County set off a bloody storm. Tens of thousands of heads were chopped off. A large number of people who rebelled were directly captured and sent to be forced laborers for a lifetime. Yangzhou, in that quiet mansion in Lu City. At dusk, a blind man dressed in black was listening to the island lord, Taipan, narrate what had happened these past few days. After capturing Nanxing County and Mengfeng County, the Long Gang Guard, as well as the army of 200,000 that suddenly appeared, actually began to ceaselessly investigate the land of the two counties, as well as a bloody purge. Now, we have tens of thousands of troops hidden. They have either been killed or captured. Now, on the land of the two counties, there are less than 1,000 people of our Qing Hu Island left. Taipan's voice was low. An army of 200,000? Where do they come from? The blind man dressed in black said sternly. Everything was different from what he had planned. Qinghu Island originally didn't want to fight head-on with the Gui Yuan sect. There was no army that could fight head-on with the Long Gang Guard and the Undying Phoenix. No matter how many people there were, the flames of the Undying Phoenix could burn and collapse the army. The Long Gang Guard could kill until the army was terrified. Therefore, in Qinghu Island's plan, they were prepared to rely on their advantages and deep-rooted networks of connections to arrange a large number of people, using insidious methods such as poison to deal with the Long Gang Guard. In their opinion, after occupying the 5 counties in the north, the Gui Yuan sect wouldn't have the manpower to purge the counties in the south. Therefore, the plan would definitely succeed. Unfortunately, an army of 200,000 appeared. Moreover, the Gui Yuan sect was extremely cautious and not greedy. Instead, they first occupied Nanxing County and Mengfeng County. They began to purge them frantically, advancing step by step. The blind man dressed in black said in a low voice, "This Gui Yuan sect is advancing step by step. Step by step, they want to gradually nibble away at our 7 counties in the south. Now they're nibbling away at 2 counties. When Nanxing County and Mengfeng County are under control, nibbling away at 2 more counties. If this goes on, we can't go on like this." Taipan couldn't help but say. Chapter 1 arrives. Chapter 535. Taipan, do you have a way? The blind swordmaster asked in a deep voice. However, there was a hint of anticipation in his voice. Taipan was startled, but a bitter smile appeared on his face. What could he do? In terms of Emptiness Realm experts, the Gui Yuan sect was definitely stronger than Qinghu Island. In terms of elite troops, Qinghu Island's Long Gang Guards were existences that made people tremble in fear in the land of the 9 prefectures. The only weakness of the Gui Yuan sect was the lack of manpower. They didn't have enough manpower to occupy enough territory. But now, there was an army of 200,000 soldiers. Secondly, the Gui Yuan sect wasn't greedy at all. Instead, they were down to earth, advancing step by step. Once they occupied a place, they would ruthlessly sweep through it, making sure to completely control it. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. Taipan shook his head. The blind sword master sighed softly as well. Have you arranged all the hidden seeds? Yes. Since the day they left Qinghu Island, many elite disciples have been sent to various places in the land of the 9 prefectures. Taipan shook his head and said, however, this Ting Qingshan is only 22 years old. As long as he exists, it will be impossible for Qinghu Island to rise again. In other words, Qinghu Island won't be able to rise within 500 years. No sect in the 9 states would allow their own sect to go extinct. He had to leave behind a few bloodlines in an attempt to pass them on. 22 years old, the blind swordmaster muttered. He couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. A 22-year-old Emptiness Realm expert. Moreover, he was able to fight head-on against an Emptiness Realm culmination expert. Moreover, this monster had only lived for 22 years. His 500-year lifespan had just begun. Now, he was only in the ascending period. In the future, he would only be more dazzling. There will be no chance for Qinghu Island to rise. The blind sword master had hoped that the Gui Yuan sect would advance rashly. In the 7 counties in the south where Qinghu Island's minions were everywhere, Qinghu Island could use insidious means to eradicate the Long Gang Guards. Once the Long Gang Guards were eradicated, it would be impossible for the Gui Yuan sect to occupy Yangzhou with just the emptiness realm experts. Once the Long Gang Guards were annihilated, one of the Gui Yuan sect's legs would be broken. Unfortunately, the Gui Yuan sect was very cautious. Winter passed, and spring came. Spring passed, and summer came. In the blink of an eye, it was already early summer. Tengjia village had already been built into a small city. In an extremely large mansion on the west side of Tengjia village, Li Jun snuggled up to Teng Qingshan and watched the fish in the pond. Qingshan, tell me, is our child a boy or a girl? Li Jun stroked her belly from time to time. Teng Qingshan also smiled as he looked at his wife's belly. Compared to before, Li Jun's belly was much bigger now. It was perfectly round. He had to walk with his back straight. According to the doctor, the child would be born in the middle of next month. Time really flies. It's already been 4 months. My Teng Qingshan's child is about to be born. During this period of time, Teng Qingshan would occasionally head to the 7 southern counties to see if he could find the blind sword master. However, he spent most of his time in Teng Qingshan village. The closer it was to the birth of the child, the weirder Li Jun's emotions became. According to her mother, Yuan Lan, all pregnant women were like this. Yuan Lan even told Teng Qingshan to spend more time with his wife. The child is about to be born. Now, the war between the Gui Yuan sect and Qinghu Island has also reached a critical moment. Teng Qingshan felt worried. If that blind tie doesn't die, I'm afraid that he will come and cause trouble. Now that Li Jun is pregnant, if she miscarries because of him, it would be terrible. When a pregnant woman was pregnant, she couldn't afford to be disturbed. Even if Teng Qingshan helped to block the blind swordmaster's sword light, it would be terrible. However, the strong vibration in the air could injure Li Jun and cause the fragile baby in her belly to miscarry. Yes, no matter what, it's better to get rid of that blind tie as soon as possible. An idea emerged in Teng Qingshan's mind. For the sake of the child that was about to be born, he had to get rid of that blind tie as soon as possible. Little Jun, Teng Qingshan said. Li Jun woke up from her imagination of her future child and asked, Qingshan, what's the matter? I'm going out for a while. I'm afraid I won't be able to accompany you for some time. Teng Qingshan said solemnly. What is it? Li Jun hastily asked. Teng Qingshan explained, the blind sword master of Qinghu Island, Tai Wu, is currently in hiding. If he doesn't die, I won't be at ease. Although the 6-legged blade-like Qi is guarding the Tengjia village, I am still worried that they will come and cause trouble in Tengjia village. However, no matter how fast the demonic beast was, it was not as fast as the sword light. I'm just worried that he'll... Li Jun's expression also changed. That child, she wasn't worried about herself. She was worried about the child. After being pregnant for so long, Li Jun had long developed feelings for the child in her womb. So, I'm going to turn the world upside down to look for blind Tai, Teng Qingshan said in a low voice. Qingshan, didn't you look for it but couldn't find it? Li Jun frowned. I didn't find it in the past. Teng Qingshan shook his head. However, I was looking for it quickly. This time, I'll look for Taipan and Gu Yong slowly. I believe that if I start with Taipan and Gu Yong, I might be able to find blind Tai. Since he couldn't find blind Tai, he could only take a roundabout way and start with Taipan and Gu Yong. Taipan and Gu Yong must be hiding very carefully. Moreover, searching for innate experts seems to take a lot of time. Li Jun hastily said, Yes. Teng Qingshan nodded. I can let the undying phoenix fly as fast as possible to search for emptiness realm experts. However, if I search for innate experts, Little Blue's speed will decrease sharply. I will need to search for a few breaths for every 34 li. In this way, Yangzhou is about 2,000 li long. If I go back and forth, I can search an area that is 60 li wide and 2,000 li long. If I want to search the entire Yangzhou, I will have to go back and forth 40 times. Because I have to search at slower speed, it will take about 4 hours to go back and forth for a distance of 4,000 li. If I spend 20 hours a day, I can go back and forth 5 times. If I want to search the entire area, it will take about 8 days. Tung Qingshan said. There were 24 hours a day, 20 hours to search, and 4 hours to rest and accompany his wife. If he didn't accompany his wife for a long time, Li Jun would be worried about Tung Qingshan during her pregnancy and be emotionally affected. A whole 8 days? Li Jun nodded slightly. Ordinary Golden Dan, innate demonic beasts could fly over 10,000 li in 12 hours. In 2 hours, they could fly over 2,000 li. The Undying Phoenix was an emptiness realm demonic beast and the king of speed. In 2 hours, even if it didn't use its maximum speed, it could still reach 20 to 30,000 li. Therefore, a round trip of over 4,000 li would take 4 hours. For the Undying Phoenix, this was very slow. Maybe it will take more than 8 days. Tung Qingshan thought to himself, Taipan and Guiyong might not be in Yangzhou, but hiding in other prefectures. If he wanted to search for innate experts in Yangzhou, it would take almost 8 days without rest. Then, he would search the entire land of the 9 prefectures. Even if he didn't include the Desolate Land, the Western Region, and the Great Prairie, it would still take close to 72 days. Not wanting his wife to think too much, Tung Qingshan didn't say much. After all, for the sake of passing down orders and Qinghu Island's deep roots in Yangzhou, Taipan and the others were most likely hiding in a place in Yangzhou. On the 3rd day of the 4th month, Screech, the Undying Phoenix, flew several thousand zhang high in the sky, while Tung Qingshan transformed into a beam of light and traveled on the vast land of Yangzhou. Traveling on the ground would cover a larger area than searching on the ground in the sky. Moreover, a round trip of 4 hours. For the emptiness realm expert Tung Qingshan, this was not difficult. If I'm lucky, I might be able to find Taipan and Guiyong on the 1st day. With one step, Tung Qingshan arrived at a hill in the distance. With another step, he arrived at the surface of a river. Just like this, Tung Qingshan began to search every inch of Yangzhou. Moreover, on the ground, Tung Qingshan could even detect a depth of 34 li. Tung Qingshan advanced on the ground while the Undying Phoenix flew high in the sky, maintaining the same speed as Tung Qingshan. After all, if they encountered Blind Tai, the Undying Phoenix would be able to help the Blind Sword Master and prevent him from escaping. In the evening, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun were having dinner together. The 6-legged blade-like Qi and the Undying Phoenix were in the courtyard. Are you going out again tonight? Li Jun couldn't bear to watch. Tung Qingshan had been working hard for 3 days. Every day, he would come back to eat and chat with her. Then, he would go out to search. Yes, I'm going out again. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, Little Jun, I have to say that Qinghu Island is really good at hiding people. I've been searching like plowing the ground, but I still haven't found anything after 3 days. However, I will find them soon. I will find them soon. Yes, it's getting late. I have to go out. After hugging his wife gently, Tung Qingshan walked out of the courtyard. Little Blue. Tung Qingshan exchanged glances with the Undying Phoenix. Then, Little Blue intelligently soared into the sky and dashed high into the sky. Whoosh! Tung Qingshan transformed into a beam of flowing light and disappeared. On the 6th day of Tung Qingshan's search, at noon, although it was only the beginning of summer, Yangzhou, which was located in the south, was already very hot at noon. Gusts of hot wind blew. However, in the south of Yangzhou, in the study room of a quiet mansion in Lu City, the doors and windows were still tightly shut. What should I do? What should I do? Taipan's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the many secret letters on the table. The letters recorded the many conflicts between the Gui Yuan sect and Qinghu Island. Now, the conflicts between the two sides had moved from the open to the dark. Unfortunately, the Gui Yuan sect had the upper hand. Some city guards had even surrendered to the Gui Yuan sect. February 16th, the Gui Yuan sect devoured another 2 counties. Now, only 3 counties are still in the hands of Qinghu Island. With this speed, the Gui Yuan sect will definitely devour the last 3 counties in 1 or 2 months. By then, the entire Yangzhou will belong to the Gui Yuan sect. I am also the island lord of Qinghu Island. Taipan's face darkened. For the past half a year, he had been worrying and thinking of ways to save Qinghu Island. However, under the careful arrangements of the Gui Yuan sect's Zhuge Yuanhong, only a few of his schemes were successful. It didn't affect the overall situation. Suddenly, creak, the door of the study room opened. Who? Didn't I say that no one is allowed to enter without my permission? Taipan, who was filled with anger, scolded the person who opened the door. However, when he saw the person who opened the door, he couldn't help but be stunned. He saw a young man wearing a white cloak with some dust on it, standing there with a smile. You! Taipan's heart turned cold. He had seen the portrait of the person in front of him many times. Qinghu Island had fallen into such a state because of this person. Island Lord Tai, you seem to be very angry. The person smiled. Chapter 536. Tongue. Qingshan. Taipan squeezed the 3 words out of his mouth. Island Lord Tai, you seem to hate me? Tongue Qingshan sneered. That's right. Qinghu Island's 1,000-year foundation was destroyed because of me. I burned down Qinghu Island. Now my Gui Yuan sect is going to unify the entire Yangzhou. It is reasonable for you to hate me. It is reasonable. What? Can't I hate you? Taipan sneered. At this point, how could he lower his head and admit defeat? A fierce glint flashed in Tung Qingshan's eyes. Of course you can. I also hate Qinghu Island. I used to hate you so much that I wanted to eat Guyong's flesh and drink his blood. I also want to eat your flesh and drink your blood. Taipan stared coldly at Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan grinned. I understand. This is how the world is. If you hate someone, you must have enough power to make the enemy suffer. If you don't have enough power, you are just an ant in the eyes of your enemy. You don't even have a high position. Tung Qingshan smiled as he looked at Taipan. In the past, I was just an ant in the eyes of the blind sword master. Now you are just an ant in my eyes. When Qinghu Island dominated Yangzhou, you did all kinds of evil things. Over the past thousands of years, countless people have wanted to flatten Qinghu Island and burn Qinghu Island to the ground. However, because Qinghu Island was strong enough, no one could take revenge. Tung Qingshan sneered. Hatred is a kind of power. It makes people work hard. For thousands of years, no one could destroy Qinghu Island. However, I succeeded. If I didn't hate Qinghu Island, Tung Qingshan, wouldn't be able to improve so quickly. It's also impossible for me to cultivate without slacking off. Tung Qingshan recalled the years of continuous cultivation. He didn't dare to slack off for even a day. Why? It was because Qinghu Island was always suppressing him. After Tung Qingshan finished speaking, he walked to the chair next to him and sat down peacefully. You're not going to kill me? Taipan frowned. You want to die so soon? Tung Qingshan glanced at him and took out the 2 halves of the reincarnation spear from the spear sack on his back. He then leisurely connected the 2 halves of the reincarnation spear. Taipan looked calm on the surface, but he was very anxious in his heart. Grandmaster is underground. If this Tung Qingshan finds out, it will be terrible. Although Martial Ancestor is not afraid of this Tung Qingshan is definitely not the only one who came here. There must be other powerful demonic beasts. Thinking of this, Taipan sneered. Tung Qingshan, if you don't capture me, I'll leave. With that, Taipan walked out. Pong! A spear shadow swept over. Taipan wanted to dodge, but just as he thought of dodging, a whooshing sound rang out. Before he could move his body, the spear hit the back of his leg. Taipan couldn't help but kneel and fall to the ground. Don't worry. I didn't ask you to leave. You better not walk out of this study room. Otherwise, you will suffer. Tung Qingshan sat calmly on the chair and said coldly. Taipan turned and glared at Tung Qingshan. He sneered coldly. Are you still an emptiness realm expert? Or a peerless figure comparable to the 4 omnipotent experts? What a disgrace. You're a disgrace to the emptiness realm experts. You only know how to bully an innate expert like me. If you have the ability, just kill me. Taipan continued to provoke Tung Qingshan. This was because he knew that his martial ancestor, the blind sword master, was underground. If he could really provoke Tung Qingshan might kill him out of anger. Then, Tung Qingshan might just leave. Let me guess, why are you provoking me like this? Tung Qingshan sat there with a smile. He picked up a teacup from the table and said, "If my guess is correct, that blind Tai has a close relationship with you. He hides every day and occasionally gets some information from you. Am I right?" Taipan was shocked. When Tung Qingshan saw Taipan sneer, he couldn't help but laugh and say, "Stop pretending. I'm telling you, I'm waiting here for that blind Tai to come." According to Tung Qingshan's deduction, this blind Tai must be hiding in an extremely secretive place. He probably only came to contact Taipan once a day or even once every few days. Therefore, the stupidest and most direct way to find blind Tai was to wait for him to come. Just sit there quietly. When blind Tai comes, I might be kind enough to send you on your way. This way, you won't have to suffer, and I can relax. Tung Qingshan said indifferently. His indifferent tone made Taipan even more anxious. At the same time, he was very suspicious of a young man who was only 22 years old and had been cultivating in seclusion for a long time. How could he have such a mature, cold, and meticulous mind if he had been cultivating in seclusion for a long time? What he didn't know was that Tung Qingshan had received a lot of training in his previous life. Even though he wasn't an intelligent killer, he wasn't like those people in the land of the 9 prefectures who only knew how to cultivate and kill people. They were extremely careless in their actions and strategies. "Grandmaster, go!" Suddenly, Taipan, who was in the study, let out a fierce roar. The true core of a Golden Dan innate expert completely exploded. The terrifying roar even caused the air to vibrate. Many of the papers in the study exploded with a bang. The teacup in Tung Qingshan's hand also exploded, and the terrifying sound waves spread wildly. This roar was abrupt, violent, and intense. Taipan was going all out. "Go!" This roar was obviously broken. There was a trace of blood at the corner of Taipan's mouth. This furious roar caused some damage to his throat and windpipe. In the underground, in the depths of the cave, the black-clothed blind man sat cross-legged in silence. Taipan's angry roar didn't cause any reaction from the black-clothed blind man. He still sat there, in the study. Taipan frowned slightly. "Don't you think it's strange?" Tung Qingshan was still sitting on the chair as he looked at Taipan with a smile. The extreme roar of a Golden Dan innate expert. Why didn't it even break the paper window of the study? It didn't even vibrate. Why didn't anyone come from the mansion after your roar? "You." Taipan's expression changed drastically. Tung Qingshan smiled faintly. "Taipan, just in case. When I came in, I had already solidified the space in the study. This way, the sound wouldn't be able to travel out, even if you shout yourself hoarse." "Oh, you have already shouted yourself hoarse. Even so, the black-clothed blind man wouldn't be able to hear you." "Phew." Tung Qingshan stood up. "What are you doing?" Taipan's mind was in a mess. "I have to thank you." Tung Qingshan grinned at Taipan. "Because of your roar, I understood. Taipan should be within 10 li, or even 100 li. That's because even though you've screamed until you're hoarse, your voice can only travel 100 miles at most. Therefore, Taipan should be within 100 li. Taipan's eyes widened. He didn't expect Tung Qingshan to react so quickly. "In order to prevent you from causing trouble, I reminded the black-clothed blind man. I had to use some tricks. Therefore, I'm sorry." Tung Qingshan smiled as he walked forward, but his eyes were cold without a trace of hesitation. The reincarnation spear shook like a phantom. Taipan couldn't dodge at all and was hit in the abdomen. Bang! Taipan's body shook violently. His face turned pale, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His dantian had already been broken. "Now, come with me to see that blind man, Tai Wu." Tung Qingshan picked up the crippled Taipan. Under the pressure of the powerful power of the heavens and earth, the crippled Tai Pan couldn't move at all. Tung Shan walked out of the study. His figure flashed and disappeared at the door of the study. Tung Shan held the reincarnation spear in one hand and Tai Pan in the other. He leaped onto the back of the undying phoenix, who was diving down at an extremely fast speed. Below, Tung Shan pointed the tip of the reincarnation spear downwards. Without a doubt, he couldn't find Tai Wu even after a thorough search. Moreover, Tai Pan had shouted anxiously. It was obvious that Tai Wu was within 100 li. Therefore, there could only be one place, underground. Actually, Tai Pan had no other choice. If he hadn't shouted, Tung Shan would have waited until nightfall. The blind sword master would have rushed over. At that time, Tung Shan could still use his domain to find the blind sword master. Chi-Chi, the undying phoenix, was engulfed in a large amount of flames. The flames were white on the surface and black on the inside. The undying phoenix was diving down continuously. Under the influence of the white and black flames, even the hardest rock would instantly turn into dust. The speed of the undying phoenix underground was extremely fast. Stop! Tung Shan instantly discovered a familiar and powerful aura hiding about 34 li underground on his left. This aura seemed to be formed by the accumulation of black rays of light. It was powerful and restrained. It was the blind sword master, Tai Wu. Whoosh! Without hesitation, the undying phoenix, Little Blue, dashed over. The blind sword master, who was sitting cross-legged underground and holding the thin iron rod in his hand, suddenly felt two powerful emptiness realm auras invading his domain. Oh no, it's Jing Yi. The blind sword master subconsciously remembered Jing Yi's identity. Without any hesitation, the blind sword master immediately flew upwards diagonally. Tung Shan is here. The other emptiness realm aura was as hot as fire. It should be the legendary undying phoenix. However, although this aura of soul is quite powerful, it's not as powerful as I imagined. It's much weaker than the demonic dragon in the Great Yin Mountain. The blind sword master was confused as he fled. In his imagination, the legendary undying phoenix should be the most powerful emptiness realm demonic beasts. Even if it wasn't as powerful as the demonic dragon, Violet Rain, it shouldn't be much weaker. However, the blind sword master's senses were clearly much weaker. In fact, the undying phoenix was only slightly weaker than him, a human who had attained emptiness realm culmination. To a certain extent, the strength of the aura of soul was a reflection of one's strength. Tai Wu, don't run. You won't be able to escape. Tung Shan's voice sounded in the blind sword master's ears. The distance between the two of them shortened at an alarming speed. Too fast, too fast. The blind sword master's expression darkened. Bang! Bang! The instant the blind sword master dashed out of the ground, the undying phoenix carried Tung Shan on its back. The blind sword master froze. He saw a huge godly bird bathed in flames hovering in front of him. Its entire body was covered in fiery red feathers. It was the legendary undying phoenix. A young man dressed in a white cloak stood on the back of the undying phoenix. He held a long spear with red tassels in his hand. He was also carrying a person in his hand. It was the island lord of Qinghu Island, Tai Pan. Tai Wu, the grudge between you and me, the grudge between Qinghu Island and Tung Shan will end here. Tung Shan's voice sounded. 3 chapters are completed. Will I write tomorrow? Can you guess? You're so smart. You should be able to guess. Tomato is also looking forward to it. Chapter 537. Screech. The resounding cry of the phoenix reverberated in the sky above the boundless countryside. Tung Shan, although the blind sword master Tai Wu's gray eyes could not see, he could sense Tung Shan's aura. He couldn't help but laugh coldly and say, "You really hid your true name well. After escaping, you actually resisted the urge to reveal your true name. Instead, you used the name Jing Yi." A 21-year-old emptiness realm expert. Good. I, Tai Wu, did not expect to meet an opponent like you before the end of my life. I also did not expect that in the land of the 9 prefectures, Qinghu Island and I would have such a grudge. Only when one side is destroyed can this end. Tung Qingshan sighed as he stood on the back of the undying phoenix. At this moment, the 2 emptiness realm experts were accumulating power at the same time. Both sides were ready to fight to the death. Martial ancestor, run. Tai Pan, who was being held by Tung Qingshan, could not help but shout anxiously. Tung Qingshan casually threw the iron ladder downwards. It was only a few tens of zhang high, but the iron ladder fell down like a piece of rotten rock. When it neared the ground, he nimbly rolled and tried his best to reduce the impact. However, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. He then stood up straight and raised his head to look at the sky. At this moment, the 2 emptiness realm experts could only see each other. Martial ancestor. Tai Pan was anxious. Run? The blind sword master, Tai Wu, wanted to run. However, he was underground and the speed of the undying phoenix. Moreover, the speed of the undying phoenix instantly dashed in front of him. Whether it was underground or in the sky, the undying phoenix's shocking speed told the blind sword master. He could not escape today. Since he could not escape, he might as well fight to the death. I have reached emptiness realm culmination. This Ting Qingshan has obviously not reached emptiness realm culmination. I don't believe that I can't kill him, although he has the help of the undying phoenix. If I can kill Tung Qingshan today, it will be the same as breaking the strongest weapon of the Gui Yuan sect. This is tantamount to breaking the strongest weapon of the Gui Yuan sect. Qinghu Island still has the hope of regaining control of Yangzhou. The blind sword master knew very well that the Gui Yuan sect had emptiness realm demonic beasts. However, these emptiness realm demonic beasts were led by Tung Qingshan. Now that Tung Qingshan was dead, why would the demonic beasts help the Gui Yuan sect? Therefore, the blind sword master only had one choice: fight to the death and come back to life. The blind sword master instantly became as resolute as a boulder. The 2 rays of black light in his gloomy eyes instantly shrunk into 2 black dots, resembling 2 pupils. Tung Qingshan, I heard that your spear art is outstanding. This time, will you use your axe art or your spear art? The blind sword master's cold and stern voice resounded. Since this is my last battle with you, Tai Wu, I will naturally use my spear art. Tung Qingshan held the reincarnation spear with both hands and placed it in front of him. I, Tai Wu, have dominated the world for over 400 years. Today I will fight with you, the youngest emptiness realm expert in history. Let's see who will live and who will die. The blind sword master sneered and said, Of course, if you think it's unfair, you can ask your undying phoenix to help. I, Tai Wu, will take all of your attacks. I alone am enough to deal with you. Tung Qingshan's eyes narrowed, and his desire to fight grew. He had completely entered a state of life and death. It had been more than half a year since he comprehended the water elemental Tao. How much progress had he made during this half a year? It all depended on this battle. I have the Hong Tian godly armor, and I have learned many ultimate techniques from the 36 splitting mountain forms. I also have the undying phoenix to support me. I can completely suppress my opponent with my imposing manner. However, I still can't kill the blind sword master. Why should I try to spread the branch of internal martial art? If he doesn't die, the blind sword master roared inwardly, I will die. Both of them were extremely determined. Silence. The 2 emptiness realm experts condensed their auras to the extreme. The invisible and untouchable aura was oppressive. It was like the oppressive feeling before a storm. At this moment, a large patch of dark clouds blocked the sun. The chirping of the cicadas in the countryside instantly disappeared. Everything was deathly silent. Only Tai Pan, who was on the ground, looked up. Huh! Tung Qingshan, who was on the back of the undying phoenix, suddenly roared. His roar was like a thunderclap in spring. He leaped up into the air like a male eagle and raised the reincarnation spear high in the air. For a moment, Tung Qingshan looked like the god who created the world. The blind sword master hovered in midair with a thin iron rod in his hand and stood there calmly. Rumble. The reincarnation spear struck down from the sky, causing the heavens and the earth to change color. Ridiculous. The corners of the blind swordmaster's mouth curled up as he thrust the thin iron rod upward with lightning speed. It was a simple thrust. The thin iron rod pierced the shaft of the reincarnation spear. However, a strange ripple of space that could be seen by the naked eye traveled along the thin iron rod and toward the blind swordmaster. The blind swordmaster's facial expression changed slightly. The thin iron rod trembled imperceptibly a few times, and the blind swordmaster staggered and fell to the ground. His face turned red. How was this mountain splitting strike? Tung Qingshan laughed heartily as he descended rapidly from the sky. Bang! The moment he landed heavily on the ground, Tung Qingshan's legs shook and he disappeared from his original spot like a huge mudfish. When he reappeared, he was already beside the blind swordmaster. He spun the shaft of the reincarnation spear, and the entire spear shaft curved. It was as if a huge dragon was roaring. The blind swordmaster sneered and thrust his sword 3 times at lightning speed. Pooh! 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 After the thin iron rod pierced the spearhead 3 times, Tung Qingshan felt as if the rhythm of his vermilion metal tiger cannon had been completely destroyed. Without hesitation, he took 3 steps forward. Each step covered a distance of several zhang, and he drew a zigzag shape. The blind swordmaster's gray eyes flashed with a fierce light as he pounced forward. Instantly, 7 black rays of light pierced toward Tung Qingshan. One retreated, while the other attacked. Huh! Tung Qingshan suddenly laughed arrogantly. He stopped retreating and turned around, dashing toward the blind swordmaster. Chi-chi! The tip of the reincarnation spear in Tung Qingshan's hand spun. Instantly, electric sparks appeared on the tip of the spear, tearing the heavens and the earth. With a strange rotating force, the spear pierced toward the blind swordmaster like a huge electric drill piercing through the heavens and the earth. The blind swordmaster's facial expression changed when he sensed the power of the reincarnation spear. He had comprehended one of his 2 ultimate techniques, Thunder Fire Toxic Dragon Drill. The blind swordmaster roared, "Die!" The thin iron rod instantly transformed into 9 blurry rays of light. For a moment, no one could tell which was real and which was fake. When the 9 black rays of light collided with Tung Qingshan's swift and fierce spear, not a single sound was produced. He didn't block it. The blind swordmaster didn't block the spear. Tung Qingshan also didn't block the blind swordmaster's terrifying thrust. Clang, clang, clang. The strange thing was that a black short sword suddenly appeared in the blind swordmaster's left hand. The short sword swiftly pierced the burning tip of the reincarnation spear. Break! Tung Qingshan roared. The terrifying rotating force contained in the tip of the spear made the blind swordmaster's left hand numb. The web between his thumb and forefinger split open and blood oozed out. The black short sword was also sent flying. The tip of Tung Qingshan's rotating reincarnation spear instantly pierced through the blind swordmaster's left arm. At this moment, the blind swordmaster's thin iron rod also pierced Tung Qingshan's chest. Bang! Bang! Both of them were pushed back violently. The ground trembled as if it was being trampled by 2 demonic gods. Fissures appeared on the ground. Blind Tai, you are really daring. You are fighting to the death with me without wearing a godly armor. Tung Qingshan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and laughed loudly. His eyes were as cold as knives as he dashed toward the blind swordmaster. Both of them had attacked each other, but Tung Qingshan had withstood the attack with the help of the Hong Tian godly armor. However, the blind swordmaster had lost an arm. How come you are completely fine? The blind swordmaster couldn't help but yell angrily. I used the Jun symbol formula. Even if you used a godly armor, you wouldn't be able to survive this attack. My abilities are beyond your imagination. Tung Qingshan laughed loudly. Other than the Hong Tian godly armor, Tung Shan also relied on his body, which was perfect both internally and externally. Even his internal organs were tougher than dark steel. With such a body, the blind sword master would be dreaming if he wanted to kill Tung Shan with the Zhun symbol sword art. Tung Shan's eyes widened. Ha! Take a few of my thunder-fire toxic dragon drills. Tung Shan's footsteps were as fast as lightning. Like an ancient god, he dashed toward the blind sword master with large strides. He ignored his defense and stabbed his spear at the blind sword master. His spear was as fast as lightning. It was as fast as lightning. For a moment, thunder and lightning covered the blind sword master. The blind sword master no longer dared to ignore his defense and fight head-on. Clang, clang, clang. The blind sword master retreated rapidly and withstood Tung Shan's 9 spear strikes. However, these 9 spear strikes with the power to devour mountains and rivers caused Tung Shan's aura to rise to its peak. The blind sword master immediately felt that something was wrong. This is bad. If this continues, his aura will rise to its peak. However, Tung Shan's agility and speed were not inferior to his. Moreover, the reincarnation spear's attack speed was too fast. The blind sword master couldn't dodge it at all. Ha! After 9 spear strikes, the excited Tung Shan suddenly roared, "Tai Wu, I'll send you on your way." The tip of Tung Shan's reincarnation spear was instantly surrounded by a black glow. At this moment, the heavens and the earth seemed to darken and become silent. There was nothing else in the world except for Tung Shan's spear. The scarlet tassel spun and danced in the air. For a moment, the entire space seemed to tremble. Ha! A deep roar came from the blind swordmaster's throat. The thin iron rod at his hand suddenly transformed into a huge black sword and blocked Tung Shan's powerful spear strike. Bang! The moment the tip of the reincarnation spear touched the huge black sword, the terrifying force contained in the reincarnation spear caused the huge black sword to vibrate and almost dissipate. Simultaneously, the reincarnation spear spun around the huge black sword and swiftly stabbed forward. Poochie! The tip of the reincarnation spear emerged from the back of the blind swordmaster's neck. The scarlet tassel had absorbed the blind swordmaster's blood. Tung Shan had painstakingly comprehended his most powerful technique, World Exterminating Spear. Chapter 1. Chapter 538. The Thunderfire Toxic Dragon Drill and the World Destroyer Spear were the 2 ultimate techniques that Tung Shan had created in the past half a year. Ever since he had comprehended the Tao of water and his physical strength, Tung Shan could control 90% of the power of the heavens and the earth. Therefore, he urgently needed ultimate techniques that could control the power of the heavens and the earth. The Thunderfire Toxic Dragon Drill was a technique that was created based on the Toxic Dragon Drill. It was not very powerful. There was no internal friction and no amplification. It only contained 90% of the power of the heavens and the earth. However, the World Destroyer Spear was different. The 36 splitting mountain forms was a terrifying axe art that aimed to destroy and kill. The first 30 forms corresponded to the 5 elements. The 31st to 36 forms were moves that used the axe art from different angles. After Tung Shan had comprehended the Tao of destruction, he looked at the 36 forms again. After he had comprehended the Tao of destruction, he integrated it into the spear art and created this technique, World Destroyer Spear, a swift and fierce spear that focused on the realm of destruction. It contained 90% of the power of the heavens and the earth, but it could unleash 100% of its power. Poochie! Tung Shan suddenly pulled the reincarnation spear, and the blind sword master immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The blind sword master knelt down powerlessly. A fierce glint could still be seen in his turbid eyes. Then, the blind sword master spat out a few indistinct sounds with blood at the corner of his mouth. Then his head drooped and he stopped moving. Martial ancestor! A shrill voice sounded nearby. It was the island lord of Qinghu Island, Taipan. It's over. It's all over. Tung Qingshan held the reincarnation spear with one hand. The tip of the spear and the red tassel were stained with the blind swordmaster's blood. The enmity between me and Qinghu Island is finally over. At this moment, many people who died because of Qinghu Island appeared in Tung Qingshan's mind. Lady Qing, Tung Yongxiang, the Black Armored Corps brothers who died under the arrows, and the emptiness realm expert of the Gui Yuan sect, Elder Wu. In the end, Qinghu Island was destroyed. Yangzhou will belong to the Gui Yuan sect. Tung Qingshan's eyes shone faintly. However, this is just the beginning. Whoosh! With the reincarnation spear on his back and the blind swordmaster's corpse in one hand, Tung Qingshan appeared beside the despairing Tai Pan in the blink of an eye. When Tung Qingshan and the blind swordmaster were fighting, Tai Pan had never thought of escaping. Firstly, an emptiness realm expert could clearly sense an area of 34 li. Since his Dantian was destroyed, it would take him at least an hour to run 34 li. Secondly, now that the blind swordmaster was dead, what was the point of escaping? Little Blue. Tung Qingshan grabbed the blind swordmaster's corpse with his left and right hands and carried the iron pan. With one leap, he reached a height of 1,000 zhang high in the sky. The undying phoenix let out an excited cry and glided past. Tung Qingshan just happened to land on its back. With a flap of its wings, the undying phoenix flew toward the north. Only a pool of blood was left on this boundless countryside. Zhuge Yuanhong was sitting under a pavilion in the west garden of Tongjia village. He could faintly hear a group of youths shouting in unison on the training field outside. The West Garden occupied an extremely large area. Aside from the residence of Tung Qingshan and his wife, there were also the residences of 98 youths. There were also the residences of Tung Shou and the others, as well as the residences of the guests. Phew! A fiery red beam of light descended from the sky and landed beside the pavilion. Qingshan, Zhuge Yuanhong, stood up. However, when he saw the two people in Tung Qingshan's hands, Zhuge Yuanhong couldn't help but be shocked. Tung Qingshan placed the blind swordmaster's corpse on the grass patch at the side. Then, he threw the living person, Tai Pan, to the side. Is this the blind swordmaster, Tai Wu? Zhuge Yuanhong hastily walked over and carefully examined the blind swordmaster's corpse. The blind swordmaster was dressed in black, and there was a hideous wound on his throat. The wound was stained with blood that hadn't completely dried yet. I killed him outside, Luqing. Tung Qingshan nodded. Zhuge Yuanhong stared at Tai Wu's corpse for a while. Then, he raised his head and laughed loudly. It's good that he's dead. It's good that he's dead. With a thud, Zhuge Yuanhong knelt toward the east and kowtowed heavily. He then raised his head and shouted in a trembling voice, "Martial ancestor, Qingshan has avenged you. You saw it, right? Blind Tai is dead." Zhuge Yuanhong's eyes were filled with tears. Zhuge Yuanhong was personally taught by Elder Wu. Although they were called martial ancestor, they were more like master and disciple. Elder Wu's death had always been on Zhuge Yuanhong's mind. However, he didn't have the ability to take revenge, so he could only endure. Zhuge Yuanhong, why are you so proud? Why are you shouting? No matter what, the emptiness realm expert of your Gui Yuan sect is still ahead of my martial ancestor. Tai Pan, who was in pain, couldn't help but mock Tung Qingshan. Zhuge Yuanhong glanced at him and said with a faint smile, "Island Lord Tai, the Lord of Island Extermination, you still have the time to care about who died ahead of you." Tai Pan, listen carefully, Zhuge Yuanhong said with a smile. Within 10 days, the entire Yangzhou will belong to the Gui Yuan sect. There will be no place for Qinghu Island. Open your eyes and watch carefully. The death of the blind swordmaster was a huge blow to the higher-ups of Qinghu Island. The island lord, Tai Pan, was captured alive by the Gui Yuan sect. This was a huge blow to a large number of disciples and troops of Qinghu Island. In just 7 days, the Long Gang guards took down the last 3 counties of Yangzhou at lightning speed. The higher-ups were dispirited, and the low-level disciples had no morale. Qinghu Island didn't even have the morale to fight to the death. Since then, the 13 counties of Yangzhou had all fallen into the hands of the Gui Yuan sect. In a mountain village in the south of Yangzhou, near the southern barbaric land, whoosh, a blurry figure darted out from the edge of the desolate land and advanced at an astonishing speed. Soon, it darted into the mountain village and entered an ordinary house in the mountain village. A silver-haired elder in the house was shocked. When he saw the person, he immediately revealed an expression of pleasant surprise and bowed respectfully. "Lord, where's the information?" The person who rushed over was dressed in gray sackcloth. His long hair was draped over his shoulders, and he was barefooted. He looked like a savage. It was the former island lord of Qinghu Island, Guyong. "Lord," the silver-haired elder painfully handed over a stack of information and said anxiously, "The Grand Supreme Elder has been killed, and the island lord has been captured alive by the Gui Yuan sect. Even the last 3 counties of Qinghu Island have been seized by the Gui Yuan sect. Our Qinghu Island is already finished. Lord, what should we do now?" Qinghu Island had been hiding in various places, and the survivors were all anxious. But now, the only one who could lead them and respond to a single call was Guyong. Guyong flipped through the information. As he read the words on the paper, his hands trembled slightly. He didn't say anything. After reading all the information, he put down. "Lord, what should we do?" The silver-haired elder hastily asked. "According to the previous plan, hide," Guyong said indifferently. "Cultivate the younger disciples of Qinghu Island. I hope that after a few hundred years, Qinghu Island can rise again. As for me, you don't have to look for me anymore." With this, Guyong transformed into a phantom. Under the silver-haired elder's desperate gaze, he disappeared into the distance in the south. In the depths of the boorish desolate, Guyong was alone beside a mountain stream. He was kneeling by the mountain stream. His body trembled as he knelt, and he let out whimpering sounds. In the midst of the terrifying hoarse roars, there were also strange sounds of flesh being torn apart. Suddenly, Guyong, who was kneeling, suddenly raised his head. He saw a hideous and terrifying face covered in claw marks and torn flesh. He was completely disfigured. If an ordinary person saw this face, they would probably have nightmares. It couldn't even be considered a face. Gui Yuan sect. Tung Qing Shan. I will definitely come back. I will. Like a desperate beast, Guyong roared and dived into the depths of the boorish desolate, disappearing. When the survivors of Qinghu Island were in despair, some of the clans under Qinghu Island, who had been powerful in various places, either fled, were captured, or surrendered. In short, the entire place was filled with mourning sounds. As for the hundreds of thousands of disciples of the Gui Yuan sect, they all cheered and jumped in joy. The Gui Yuan sect had finally become the #1 sect in the entire Yangzhou. It was one of the 7 supreme sects in the land of the 9 prefectures. In the restaurants, cloth stores, and even the fields of Jiangning County, all kinds of discussions could be heard. The entire Yangzhou knew that the current ruler of Yangzhou had changed. The ruler was no longer Qinghu Island, but the Gui Yuan sect. It was because the Gui Yuan sect had produced an unprecedented figure, Tung Qingshan. In an instant, many stories about Tung Qingshan, whether true or completely fabricated, spread throughout the land of the 9 prefectures. In short, all kinds of stories about Tung Qingshan spread throughout the land of the 9 prefectures. The youths, who were filled with hope, listened to the stories about Tung Qingshan and began to work hard. They wanted to be famous throughout the world one day. Currently, Tungjia village was filled with a joyous atmosphere. Within 100 li, which girl of the village didn't want to marry into Tungjia village? For them, if they married into Tungjia village, they wouldn't have to worry about food, clothing, or danger. Returning to their mother's home was especially glorious. This made all the men of Tungjia village extremely happy. At the same time, many young children began to diligently practice the Xing E12 boxing. The Xing E12 boxing and the 3 postures had already become compulsory for the men of Tungjia village. On the 16th of April, in the legendary Tungjia village, Tung Qingshan and Zhuge Yuanhong stood side by side in a corner, watching a group of youths practicing their fist arts on the training field. Qingshan, is the fist art you created really so amazing? You don't need to sit cross-legged to practice your inner strength. Just by practicing fist arts, you can produce inner strength, and it can greatly increase your physical strength. As Zhuge Yuanhong listened to Tung Qingshan's detailed explanation of the advantages of the internal martial arts, he couldn't help but feel a little disbelief. There is inner strength in a strong body. Isn't this even stronger than the Taoist and Buddhist sects? Each has its own advantages and disadvantages. Tung Qingshan said confidently, "Master, my internal martial art has a very high requirement for aptitude. Out of 20 ordinary teenagers, only one could practice the internal martial art. The aptitude requirement was high, and to open up all the meridians in the body and reach the Grandmaster realm. In other words, the innate realm. It's also extremely difficult. However, once it succeeds, you'll have to pay for it." He had a supreme force that was comparable to the innate true origin. Moreover, he had astonishing physical strength. In the same realm, the experts of the internal martial art can definitely suppress the experts of the Taoist sect. The Buddhist sect. Tung Qingshan said confidently. Zhuge Yuanhong was surprised, but then his expression changed slightly. "Qingshan." Zhuge Yuanhong's voice became serious. "Master?" Tung Qingshan was startled and turned to look. "Tell me honestly," Zhuge Yuanhong said in a deep voice. "Are you preparing to establish a sect and pass down the internal martial arts?" Tung Qingshan was slightly startled, but he still nodded. Zhuge Yuanhong frowned and said, "If you want to establish a sect, then where will my Gue Yuan sect be?" Up to the 2nd chapter and the 3rd chapter. Chapter 539. Tung Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. This was his biggest headache. Whether it was the inheritance of the internal martial art in his previous life or the various sects in this world. Without a doubt, they all valued their sections. A teacher for a day is a father for a lifetime. If you betray your sect, you will be looked down upon by the people of the world. They would fight for their sect and die for their sect. Many families were members of sects for many generations. Some children were born with the mark of a sect in their blood. In the land of the 9 prefectures, sects were like countries in his previous life. Betraying a sect was betraying a country. Tung Qingshan wanted to establish a sect, which was equivalent to building another country in his own country. No matter how good Zhuge Yuanhong was to Tung Qingshan, how could he agree? "Teacher." Tung Qingshan took a deep breath and organized his words before he said, "In my life, I want my family to live happily. Secondly, I want to develop the branch of internal martial art and spread it throughout the land of the 9 prefectures. I want the branch of internal martial art to flourish in the land of the 9 prefectures forever. Therefore, I must establish a sect." This was a dream and a goal. If he couldn't achieve this goal, all his efforts would be meaningless. Continue. Zhuge Yuanhong just listened. "The Gue Yuan sect has helped me in the Tungjia village," Tung Qingshan said solemnly. "However, I have always wanted to develop the branch of internal martial art. Therefore, I have always been troubled. I don't know how to deal with the relationship between the Gue Yuan sect and the sect I want to establish. However, when I came into contact with the Heavenly God Palace, I had an idea." Zhuge Yuanhong frowned slightly. "I was thinking that the sect I want to establish and the Gue Yuan sect can be combined into one sect. For example, the Heavenly God Palace has the Snowy Lotus Cult, the God of Heaven Mountain, the Sword Sect, and the Valley of Beasts. Our sect can have 2 sects in the future. One is the Gue Yuan sect, and the other is the sect I want to establish. The 2 are equal." Tung Qingshan voiced out his thoughts. Actually, when Tung Qingshan mentioned the Heaven Deity Palace, Zhuge Yuanhong understood what Tung Qingshan meant. Zhuge Yuanhong opened his mouth and then sighed. He longed for Tung Qingshan to work hard for the rise of the Gui Yuan sect, and for Tung Qingshan's branch of internal martial art to become a part of the Gui Yuan sect. Everything belonged to the Gui Yuan sect. The status of the Gui Yuan sect could be compared to that of the Mani Temple. But before he opened his mouth, Zhuge Yuanhong knew that it was impossible. In the land of the 9 prefectures, who among the peerless geniuses didn't have ambition? Who doesn't have dreams? Emperor Yu unified the land of the 9 prefectures, left Emperor Yu's hall, and created a perfect branch of Taoism. The celestial emperor of Qin Mountains also unified the 9 prefectures, leaving only the Ying family. The poetic sword god, Li Taibai, was a free and unfettered person. He wouldn't work for other sections. Martial ancestor Shiga of the Buddhist sect created the Mani Temple. None of the 4 omnipotent experts would work for other sections. Because they had dreams, these peerless geniuses were able to create achievements that others looked up to. Tung Qingshan reached the emptiness realm at the age of 21. He created a branch of internal martial art that was different from the Buddhist sect and the Taoist sect. How could such a person be willing to give everything to the Gui Yuan sect? After all, Tung Qingshan didn't grow up in the Gui Yuan sect. He didn't stay in the Gui Yuan sect for a long time. Sigh. Zhuge Yuanhong sighed again. He didn't know what to say. Teacher, Tung Qingshan didn't know what to say. In his previous life, the peak of the internal martial art was the Grandmaster realm. Tung Qingshan still remembered the excitement he felt when he created the Earth Element Fist on the Great Prairie. At that time, he knew that he had found a higher-level cultivation method for the branch of internal martial art. Step by step, the Fire Element Fist, the Water Element Fist, and so on. At that time, he made up his mind to spread the internal martial art throughout the world. Qingshan. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan listened attentively and said, Teacher, please speak. This matter involves too many people. Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly. Although I am the sovereign of the Gui Yuan sect, I can't make the decision. I will rush back to the Gui Yuan sect today and ask all the elders, protectors, commanders, and the patriarchs of the important clans of the Gui Yuan sect to gather and discuss this matter. This matter was related to the future of the Gui Yuan sect. Zhuge Yuanhong didn't have the right to make the decision. Teacher, I understand. Tung Qingshan nodded. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded. Without saying anything else, he turned around and left. Tung Qingshan looked at Zhuge Yuanhong's back and sighed. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at the martial arts field. He looked at the energetic youths who were practicing the Xing martial art. Looking at these youths, Tung Qingshan vaguely saw the future when his branch of internal martial art would flourish. Thinking of this, Tung Qingshan felt a sense of heroism. He thought to himself, in this life, I must reach the peak of the internal martial art. I will pass down the branch of internal martial art for generations to come. April 16th at night. Jiangning County, Gui Yuan sect. Old man Ji, you came too? A white-haired, black-robed old man with a face full of wrinkles walked over with a smile. Ji Hong, who had a broken arm but looked very strong, also walked over with a smile. Since the sovereign has summoned me, how can I not come? However, old man Wang, haven't you long stopped managing the affairs of the sect and lived out your remaining years at home? Even the sovereign has invited you? I also think it's strange. I'm less than 10 years away from the end of my lifespan. Who knows when I will die? Why would he invite me? The wrinkled old man, surnamed Wang, said doubtfully. Together, the two arrived outside the main hall of the Gui Yuan sect. They walked up the stairs and entered the main hall. As soon as they entered the main hall, it became lively. Haha, Senior Marshal Brother Ji Hong. Marshal Uncle Wangan, you are here too. Old voices resounded everywhere in the main hall. More and more people gathered in the main hall. In addition to the elders, protectors, commanders of the Black Armored Corps, and the commander of the Long Gang Guards, there were also many seniors. Many of them had already retired from the position of elders and didn't care about the affairs of the sect. They were all over 100 years old. Qinghu, there are so many seniors here today, Zhuge Yun said in a low voice. There are a lot of them. They are all seniors with very high seniority. Tung Qinghu couldn't help but sigh. As commanders of the Black Armored Corps, the two of them sat at the back of the main hall today. At this moment, there were no less than 36 people gathered in the main hall. Most of them were old men with a head full of wrinkles and one foot in the coffin. Haha, it's rare for us to meet. I didn't expect that in this lifetime, before I die, I would be able to see my Gui Yuan sect become one of the 7 supreme sects of the 9 prefectures. Haha, even if I die, when I see my ancestors in the underworld, I will be able to stand tall. That's true. Don't you see who our Gui Yuan sect has produced? It's the genius Tung Qingshan, who is younger than the 4 omnipotent experts since ancient times. That year, when I found out about Tung Qingshan's battle in the Great Yin Mountain, when I was at home, I clapped my hands and praised him. I said that if he escaped this calamity, his future would be boundless. Everyone, look, isn't that right? The hall was bustling with noise. Everyone was talking about the recent events. The Gui Yuan sect could become one of the 7 supreme sects of the 9 prefectures. These old guys were obviously very happy and excited. Suddenly, the sovereign is here. Soon, the entire main hall quieted down. Zhuge Yuanhong, who was wearing a loose light blue robe and had long hair, walked into the main hall and directly sat on the main seat. Sovereign, why did you call us here? Haha, is it because after becoming one of the 7 supreme sects of the 9 prefectures, you want to rebuild and expand the Gui Yuan sect? These old guys laughed as they spoke. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at these elders, who were the pillars of the Gui Yuan sect since he was born. He took a deep breath and said, "Everyone." The main hall immediately quieted down. Everyone realized that the sovereign's expression was not right. The Gui Yuan sect has just annihilated Qinghu Island and occupied the entire Yangzhou. Zhuge Yuanhong's voice reverberated in the main hall. I believe everyone knows that the Gui Yuan sect was able to reach this stage. Qingshan has made a great contribution. The elders in the main hall were about to agree, but Zhuge Yuanhong continued. However, I believe everyone knows that Qingshan attained the emptiness realm at the age of 21. He is definitely the most outstanding person since the creation of the 9 prefectures. He is not inferior to the 4 omnipotent experts. Now, in the land of the 9 prefectures, there are 2 branches, the Taoist sect and the Buddhist sect, Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly. As for Qingshan, he created another branch, the branch of internal martial arts. The hall was instantly in an uproar. Is this true? A 3rd lineage outside of Buddhism and Taoism. This news was too shocking. Zhuge Yuanhong continued to speak in a low voice. However, Qingshan has always wanted to do one thing, and that is to carry forward his branch of internal martial arts. Therefore, he would definitely establish his own sect. The reason why I gather all of you here is to have a discussion. Qingshan will establish his own sect. What should our Gui Yuan sect do? Silence. Silence reigned. The doyens, who had been laughing all this time, were all dumbfounded. Open a mountain and establish a sect? Instantly, an old man whose teeth had fallen off stood up and said, "Sect Master, this is absolutely not possible." Tung Qingshan wanted to establish his own sect. Where did the territory come from? Where did the troops come from? Of course, he wants to divide Yangzhou. Today, Yangzhou is divided. I'm afraid that in the future, it will swallow up our Gui Yuan sect. That's right, Sect Master. Another person stood up with red eyes and said anxiously, "We can't be the sinners of the Gui Yuan sect. Sect Master, this is absolutely not possible. This will harm our Gui Yuan sect." One by one, the doyen stood up. Zhuge Yuanhong sat on the sovereign's seat in silence, not uttering a single word as he quietly listened to the elders' conversation. That Ting Qingshan won't forget our old friendship, will he? Just as someone spoke, someone immediately scolded. Forget our old friendship? Even if he remembers our old friendship and allows our Gui Yuan sect to survive. But what about his successor? Wait for his sect to grow. At that time, he will swallow up our Gui Yuan sect. Bang! The silver-haired, black-robed elder, whose face was full of wrinkles and age spots, pushed a chair away, and suddenly knelt on the floor of the main hall. He raised his head and shouted hoarsely, "The ancestors of my Gui Yuan sect have created such a situation. Now, we have reached the peak and control the entire Yangzhou. Sect Master, please don't let the efforts of our ancestors go to waste. Otherwise, when we die in the future, how can we face our ancestors in the underworld?" As he spoke, the old man wept. Sect Master, one by one, the doyens wept. Some were extremely angry. In short, none of the doyens agreed. The younger generation, like Zhuge Yun and Teng Qinghu, didn't dare to speak. Zhuge Yuanhong sat on the seat of the sect master, listening to the doyen's words without saying a word. After a long time, immediately, the entire hall became quiet. All the doyens stared at the sovereign, Zhuge Yuanhong. Zhuge Yuanhong sighed and said, "The Gui Yuan sect's current situation is due to Qingshan's contributions. This cannot be slandered. I just want to say that we have two choices. 1. Don't agree to Teng Qingshan's decision to establish his own sect. Then, Teng Qingshan will leave the Gui Yuan sect and establish his own sect. By that time, without the help of an emptiness realm expert, how can the Gui Yuan sect protect Yangzhou? It will be like a piece of meat in the mouth of a pack of wolves. I don't need to say more about the consequences. The second choice is to agree to Teng Qingshan's decision to establish his own sect. There are two choices. Everyone choose." Zhuge Yuanhong's voice echoed in the hall. Everyone was silent. Chapter 540. The great hall of the Gui Yuan sect was so quiet that it was suffocating. All the founding elders, commanders, and protectors of the younger generation were silent. It was a difficult choice. Not allowing Teng Qingshan to establish his own sect was equivalent to forcing Teng Qingshan to leave. If Teng Qingshan was allowed to establish his own sect, it was equivalent to giving half of the fruits of the Gui Yuan sect to Teng Qingshan. What was more frightening was that in the future, the Gui Yuan sect might be swallowed up by the sect founded by Teng Qingshan. No one doubted the prosperity of Teng Qingshan's sect. "Sovereign," a hoarse voice sounded. Everyone in the great hall turned to look. The speaker was the first commander of the Black Armored Corps, Jihong. "What did Teng Qingshan say?" Jihong asked. Zhuge Yuanhong said, "Qingshan said that the sect he established would be on par with the Gui Yuan sect. If we are worried about swallowing each other, we should follow the example of the Heavenly God Palace. The Heavenly God Palace has many branches, such as the Snowy Lotus Cult, the Valley of Beasts, the Sword Sect, and the God of Heaven Mountain. In the future, the sect he creates and our Gui Yuan sect will be one and the same. There will be no difference in superiority and inferiority. We will be one and the same." 1 and 2 branches? Some of the elders heaved a sigh of relief. If they were so confident in the beginning, they wouldn't have to worry about being swallowed up. After all, the Snowy Lotus cult would not swallow up the God of Heaven Mountain. "Sovereign, it sounds nice to have 2 branches. However, the Gui Yuan sect would still be one of the branches under Teng Qingshan. If the sect founded by Teng Qingshan is on par with the Gui Yuan sect, what would the sect be called? At least, it shouldn't be called the Gui Yuan sect." The old man with the surname Wang sneered. "Teng Qingshan's actions are equivalent to making our Gui Yuan sect a branch under his command. That's right. We can't do that." Everyone. Jihong furrowed his brows and said, "Even so, our Gui Yuan sect has become a branch under him. But don't forget, my Gui Yuan sect was originally a small sect that ruled over a county in Jiangning County. If they followed Teng Qingshan's plan, wait until the sect became stronger in the future. It is normal for this branch of the Gui Yuan sect to rule over an entire prefecture. Although I'm still a subordinate, it's still much better than it is now." Indeed, the God of Heaven Mountain in the Great Prairie was a branch of the Heavenly God Palace. However, in terms of status, the God of Heaven Mountain was naturally much higher than the Gui Yuan sect, which had only occupied Jiangning County. The law-enforcing elder and I, rolled his eyes and sneered. I'd rather serve Jiangning Yuan sect than the Gue Yuan sect under Tung Ching Shan. Our Gue Yuan sect doesn't need to be protected by others. That's right. No matter how weak our Gue Yuan sect is, it is still the Gue Yuan sect created by our ancestors. No outsiders can point fingers at us. As for becoming a branch under Tung Ching Shan, even if we are strong, we will still be under him. We will still be under his command, following someone else's orders. Immediately, several elders agreed. Everyone, do you unshed all pretense of cordiality with Tung Ching Shan? However, there were also people who objected to this statement based on the current situation. During this meeting in the Great Hall of the Gue Yuan sect, many elders argued with each other and even cursed each other. Some elders even used the names of their ancestors to reprimand each other. In short, the entire meeting in the Great Hall was noisy until late at night. In the end, an old elder fainted on the spot while arguing emotionally. Only then did the meeting stop. At the foot of the Great Yin Mountain, in the Tung Jia village, on the morning of the second day after the meeting in the Great Hall of the Gue Yuan sect, Tung Ching Shan received a letter. It was from his cousin, Tung Qinghu, who was far away in Jiangning. The cousin recorded everything that happened in the Great Hall last night and sent it to Tung Ching Shan. Phew. In the morning, the weather was cool. Tung Ching Shan sat on a branch of a big tree and held a few pieces of paper in his hands. This was a letter sent by Tung Qinghu. Why is it like this? Tung Ching Shan looked at the contents of the letter and frowned. Even these elders don't agree to the juxtaposition of the two sects. When Tung Ching Shan saw the letter, he realized the significance of the sect to the elders. Although Tung Ching Shan already knew the significance of the sect, he had only joined the Gue Yuan sect for a short time, so he didn't have a deep understanding of the significance of the sect. Therefore, the idea of juxtaposition of the two sects should be accepted. I would rather be the Gue Yuan sect of Jiangning County than the Gue Yuan sect of Yangzhou under my command, Tung Ching Shan. Tung Ching Shan looked at the words recorded in the letter, and his frown deepened. Ching Shan. Suddenly, an old voice sounded. Tung Ching Shan turned his head and saw a silver-haired old man with a stocky build and a strong gait walking over with a smile. Grandfather. Tung Ching Shan leaped down from the branch. What are you doing? Look at your worried face. Tung Yunlong laughed and said, now that Qinghu Island has been flattened, you should be happy, Ching Shan. Tung Yunlong looked around, and the smile on his face grew wider. Look, the youths of the Tung clan are practicing martial arts diligently, and the men are forging weapons and hunting in the mountains. These are the best days of the Gue Yuan sect in many years. Tung Ching Shan couldn't help but be infected by his grandfather's emotions. Contentment brings happiness. Tung Yunlong, who had been the clan leader for dozens of years, was already very satisfied with the Tung clan's achievements today. I should be happy. However, I don't know what to do now. Tung Ching Shan shook his head. Tung Yunlong looked at Tung Ching Shan and immediately smiled. Ching Shan, if you don't mind, you can tell your grandfather. Although I don't have much ability, I have experienced a lot of hardships and troubles. Maybe I can give you, a great emptiness realm expert, some pointers. What emptiness realm expert? Tung Ching Shan couldn't help but smile as he handed over the letter. This is a letter sent by Qinghu. You will know when you read it. Tung Yunlong took the letter, and as he read, his expression became serious. After a while, he finished reading. Ching Shan. Tung Yunlong raised his head and looked at Tung Ching Shan. You want to establish a sect? Yes. Tung Ching Shan nodded and then smiled bitterly. However, it is a little troublesome now. Yes, it is actually very simple. Tung Yunlong smiled calmly. Because of Ching Shan, the Gue Yuan sect can become strong and prosperous. Now, it has become the #1 sect in Yangzhou. It is easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but it is difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. After experiencing the power, they don't want the Gue Yuan sect to become weak. What the Gue Yuan sect wants the most is for you, Tung Ching Shan, to serve the Gue Yuan sect wholeheartedly. This way, they will all be satisfied. Tung Qingshan nodded in agreement. What about you, Qingshan? Tung Yunlong smiled. I know. You are the same as almost everyone in the world who has a dream. You also want to establish a sect like Emperor Yu and the Heavenly Emperor of Qin Mountains. You want to establish a sect of your own. After all, no matter how powerful you are, if you serve other sects, you will not be the one who established the sect. You want to pass on the branch of your internal martial art. More importantly, you want Tung Qingshan's sect to be passed down forever. Am I right? Tung Qingshan was shocked. Yes, although he never said it, Tung Qingshan had to admit that his grandfather's eyes were very sharp. He could see through it with just one glance. A warrior who pursues the pinnacle wants to reach the pinnacle of the martial way. At the same time, he wants to establish his own sect. He wants his sect to be passed down forever. This is a kind of ambition, the ambition in the bones of men. Grandfather, what do you think I should do now? Tung Qingshan asked. Tung Yunlong smiled. Qingshan, you are a young man, a warrior who pursues the pinnacle. Therefore, you have a dream. It would be strange if you don't have this ambition. However, I, your grandfather, see things from a different perspective than you young people. In life, when faced with all kinds of choices, it is actually a matter of giving up and gaining. You can only gain by giving up. Qingshan, if you insist on establishing a great sect outside of the Gui Yuan sect. Yes, in the future, you, Tung Qingshan, may reach the level of Emperor Yu and Heavenly Emperor Qinling. In the history books, you will be praised like a god. No one will say anything bad about you. However, there is one thing. Your teacher, Zhuge Yuanhong, and the disciples of the Gui Yuan sect will definitely feel bad. By doing this, you will achieve your own achievements, but at the same time, you will also disappoint them. If Qingshan, you are willing to give up on fame and wealth. Instead, you are willing to join the Gui Yuan sect. You can establish another branch in the Gui Yuan sect, which will teach you the branch of internal martial art. In the future, the Gui Yuan sect will become famous, and you, Tung Qingshan, will be recorded as the leader of the Gui Yuan sect's resurgence. At the same time, you will also be the founder of the branch of internal martial art. However, the only regret is that you are not the founder of the Gui Yuan sect. Tung Yunlong looked at Tung Qingshan with a smile and said, Give up or gain, you choose. Give up the title of the founder in exchange for the relationship with your teacher and the others. Or give up the relationship with the Gui Yuan sect in exchange for the title of the founder of the sect. Tung Yunlong smiled. You have to make your own choice. For example, in the past, for the sake of the Tongjia village, I could only watch the women of the village being taken away by bandits without daring to say anything. For the sake of the clan, I give up my family. What do I give up to gain? You, Qingshan, choose. With this, Tung Yunlong left with a smile. Give up. Gain. Tung Qingshan's mind was in a mess, but after his grandfather's clear analysis and guidance, everything became clear. The choice depended on Tung Qingshan alone. Jiangning County, in the study room of the Gui Yuan sect's sovereign. Although it was afternoon, the doors and windows of the study room were closed. A fragrant aroma permeated the study room. Zhuge Yuanhong sat cross-legged. Last night's meeting in the main hall gave Zhuge Yuanhong a headache. Sigh. Zhuge Yuanhong sighed deeply. How could Zhuge Yuanhong not know Tung Qingshan's thoughts? However, he couldn't say anything. In the land of the 9 prefectures, who didn't want to gain endless fame, to establish his own sect, to inherit his own cultivation method, to be hailed as the founder of the sect by billions of disciples. Perhaps in the land of the 9 prefectures, countless youths dreamed of this day. He couldn't force Tung Qingshan to give up all these for the sake of the Gui Yuan sect. After all, Tung Qingshan's achievements today were all due to Tung Qingshan's own hard work. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of knocking on the door suddenly sounded, as if knocking on Zhuge Yuanhong's heart. Teacher, it's me. A familiar voice sounded. Qingshan. Zhuge Yuanhong hastily stood up and said, Qingshan, come in quickly. Chapter 541. Creak. After the door was pushed open, Tung Qingshan walked in with a smile. Zhuge Yuanhong saw Tung Qingshan's expression and couldn't help but feel moved. It was obvious that Tung Qingshan had already made up his mind. That was why he was so relaxed. Qingshan sit. Zhuge Yuanhong and Tung Qingshan sat side by side. Teacher, you said that in the sect, I need to consult the elders about the establishment of the sect. Is there any result now? Tung Qingshan asked. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at Tung Qingshan and said, Qingshan, actually you also know that the Gui Yuan sect has occupied one of the 9 prefectures, Yangzhou. However, it is mainly because of Qingshan's deterrence that we can suppress the other sects in the land of the 9 prefectures. However, it was mainly because of Qingshan's deterrence that the other sects in the land of the 9 prefectures could be intimidated. Qingshan, you decide what to do. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at Tung Qingshan. There should be some bottom line in the sect, right? Tung Qingshan asked. There should be some bottom line in the sect, right? Tung Qingshan asked. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded and said solemnly, First, the name of the Gui Yuan sect cannot be changed. Second, the Gui Yuan sect is not willing to become a branch of the other sects. If Qingshan is not satisfied, then the Gui Yuan sect would rather only be the Gui Yuan sect of Jiangning County. As for the other 12 counties of Yangzhou, Qingshan, you'll be in charge. Oh, Tung Qingshan nodded. Actually, from Qinghu's letter, he understood a lot. Obviously, many people in the Gui Yuan sect were very stubborn. Master, Tung Qingshan smiled. Zhuge Yuanhong listened carefully. After all, the decision was in Tung Qingshan's hands. Master, this is actually part of my plan. Establishing a sect isn't what we should be doing now. Tung Qingshan shook his head and smiled. After all, the 3rd-generation disciples of the branch of internal martial arts are still young. If you didn't mention it, I'm afraid I wouldn't be talking about this now. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded. Tung Qingshan only had 2 or 3 big kitten under his command. He was short of manpower. But because your master mentioned it, I've been thinking hard about it. I've talked to my wife, little June, and my grandfather has also given me some pointers. At noon today, I finally made up my mind. Tung Qingshan smiled. Currently, the Gui Yuan sect has only occupied Yangzhou. And in my plans, it won't just be one state. Once my foundation is stable, I'll make a breakthrough in my strength and attack Yinzhou. I'll conquer the 2nd prefecture of the 9 prefectures, Yinzhou. Zhuge Yuanhong was surprised. The Gui Yuan sect had holed up in Jiangning County for over 1,000 years. Now that they could occupy Yangzhou, they were extremely excited. However, Tung Qingshan didn't care about this at all. Yes. If it weren't for the Heavenly God Palace, I'm afraid my plan would be to occupy more places. Tung Qingshan smiled. Qingshan, what are you thinking? Zhuge Yuanhong hastily asked. Since the Gui Yuan sect is discussing this, I'll establish my sect in advance, Tung Qingshan said. Zhuge Yuanhong felt a knot in his heart. Was he really going to establish his sect? But, Master, you don't have to worry. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, When I created the branch of internal martial arts, I wanted the branch of internal martial arts to be spread throughout the land of the 9 prefectures. Originally, my plan was to occupy more territory during my lifetime. Even like Emperor Yu and the Celestial Emperor of the Qin Mountains, they unified the world. Let the branch of internal martial arts spread everywhere. Unification? Zhuge Yuanhong held his breath. Unifying the world is very difficult. Tung Qingshan shook his head. Moreover, many people will die that way. After careful consideration, I've changed my mind. Tung Qingshan said with a smile, If I want to spread the internal martial art throughout the land of the 9 prefectures, I don't need to unify the world. In fact, in my plan, the sect I'm about to create will be even more powerful. It will also be different from the 7 great sects of the land of the 9 prefectures. All different? Zhuge Yuanhong was startled. Yes. Tung Qingshan nodded. That's right. All the great sects in the land of the 9 prefectures each occupy a piece of territory. However, they teach their disciples in their respective territories. But I am different. The sect I'm about to create will learn from the Mu clan of Duanmu continent. In other words, I'm going to learn from the Wanxiang sect of the 9 prefectures. The Wanxiang sect. Zhuge Yuanhong seemed to have understood. However, my sect is still different from theirs. Tung Qingshan smiled. Different? Zhuge Yuanhong had more or less understood. Teacher, Tung Qingshan said solemnly, of the 13 counties in Yangzhou, I only want the land of 5 counties. With Jiangning County as the center, the area spanning 1,000 li from east to west and 1,000 li from north to south. The 5 counties in the center of Yangzhou, Xi'an County, Fengshan County, Mengfeng County, Nanxing County, and Jiangning County. I only want these 5 counties. Of the 13 counties in Yangzhou, the other 8 counties belong to the Gui Yuan sect. Moreover, the conquered Yinzhou will also belong to the Gui Yuan sect. Tung Qingshan said in one breath. What? Zhuge Yuanhong was shocked. He was completely shocked by Tung Qingshan's decision. Zhuge Yuanhong didn't doubt his disciple's words. With Tung Qingshan's talent, conquering Yinzhou was almost certain. Moreover, once Tung Qingshan became an insightful emptiness realm expert, together with the undying phoenix, he would be able to intimidate the world. His deterrence would be even stronger than the heavenly god palace. Once Tung Qingshan became the 5th omnipotent expert in the history of the land of the 9 prefectures, unifying the world would be a simple matter. 5 counties. You even want Jiangning County? Zhuge Yuanhong was shocked by Tung Qingshan's decision. Jiangning County was the foundation of the Gui Yuan sect. Teacher, in the future, the Gui Yuan sect will rule the 8 counties in Yangzhou and the entire Yinzhou. The best location would be at the border between Yinzhou and Yangzhou. Moreover, as a super sect, we will need to rebuild the sect city. Tung Qingshan smiled. Teacher, I think the elders will agree to this decision. How could they not agree? They wouldn't allow the Gui Yuan sect to become anyone's subordinate. Moreover, they would almost occupy 2 prefectures. Oh my God, this glory was enough to make the elders go crazy. Moreover, once they occupied 2 prefectures, the Gui Yuan sect position would not be suitable for Jiangning County, which was close to the East Sea. Because Jiangning County was too far away from Yinzhou, it would not be convenient to manage it. At that time, they would have to relocate. This kind of relocation was the relocation of the sect status. It wouldn't be like the heavenly god palace forcing the Gui Yuan sect to move to Chu County or Nanman County. All right, no problem. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded. Tung Qingshan's conditions were much better than what the people of the Gui Yuan sect thought. After all, the decision was in Tung Qingshan's hands. That's good. Tung Qingshan smiled and nodded. However, it will take time to relocate the sect. Zhuge Yuanhong was in a difficult position. Teacher, there is no hurry. How many people are there in the branch of internal martial arts? The Gui Yuan sect can relocate step by step and leave within 10 years. Tung Qingshan had thought it through before he came here today. Once he thought it through, he felt relaxed and pleasantly surprised. Because, according to his current plan, the branch of internal martial arts would spread throughout the land of the 9 prefectures at a faster speed. Moreover, the prosperity of the branch would reach a peak. Its life force would also be longer. Moreover, the sect he created would surpass the 7 supreme sects of the land of the 9 prefectures and become a transcendent sect. Teacher, I have one more thing to ask for your help. Tung Qingshan smiled. Oh, Zhuge Yuanhong was a little surprised. Master's painting skills are unparalleled in the world. I wish for Master to teach me the fist technique that I practice. Draw it, Tung Qingshan said. Zhuge Yuanhong laughed. That's easy. This fist technique of mine is called the tiger form fist. Tung Qingshan immediately stood in the middle of the study. Master, prepare the brush and ink. I'll start practicing the fist technique. On the same day, Tung Qingshan practiced the tiger form fist in the study room. He also asked Zhuge Yuanhong to finish drawing it. After that, Tung Qingshan left with a stack of paper with the moves of the tiger form fist. Tung Jia Village, West Courtyard. It was evening, and the wind was very clear. Li Jun, who was dressed in loose white clothes, was lying on a chair. Occasionally, she would stroke her big belly. Huh! Li Jun suddenly heard a loud laugh. She turned her head and saw Tung Qingshan walking into the courtyard with a smile. Qingshan, have you finished talking with the Sovereign Juga? Why are you so happy? Li Jun stood up and walked over with her belly puffed out. Sit down. Tung Qingshan carefully supported Li Jun and let her sit. Li Jun couldn't help but ask, Qingshan, tell me, what did you and your teacher talk about? Weren't you frowning last night? Li Jun also gave Tung Qingshan a lot of suggestions last night. Tung Qingshan laughed and said, it was grandfather who taught me to give up and gain. Give up and gain? Li Jun was puzzled. Yes, giving up and fighting for hegemony can make my internal martial arts spread throughout the world. Tung Qingshan said confidently. Li Jun was even more puzzled. Actually, no matter how big a territory is, it's useless. Tung Qingshan shook his head and smiled. Whether it's Qinghu Island, Xiaoyao Palace, or Hongtian City, when faced with an attack, all of them will die. It was impossible to control an entire state so perfectly. After all, a prefecture was too big. Therefore, only need 5 counties. There are about 100 million people in 5 counties. Tung Qingshan said confidently. These 5 counties are the foundation of my internal martial art. I want the land of the 9 prefectures, the desert kingdom in the western region, the great prairie in the north, and even the many islands in the east. They all learn my internal martial art. Tung Qingshan said with a smile. After that, all the successful cultivators of the internal martial arts will gather at the holy land of the internal martial arts, the Tung Jia village in the Great Yin Mountain. When they come here and become my disciples, I will teach them even more profound fist techniques. Li Jun vaguely understood. Qingshan, you mean? Li Jun's eyes lit up. For example, the Mu clan of Duanmu continent. Tung Qingshan's aura seemed to have become much stronger. Although my branch of internal martial art doesn't fight for hegemony, we have quietly absorbed countless talents of the internal martial art with the land of the 9 prefectures as our foundation. We have formed the 5 counties of Yangzhou into an absolute iron plate, and we have the strongest troops in the land of the 9 prefectures. We have become a transcendent force in the land of the 9 prefectures. We are stronger than the Mani Temple and Emperor Yu's Hall. Although we don't fight for hegemony, no sect in the world can compete with my branch of internal martial art. Li Jun froze. You will understand in the following month. Tung Qingshan weighed the stack of paper in his hand, the drawing paper of the tiger form fist art. Here is the first chapter. I still owe 2 chapters yesterday, so I will update 5 chapters today. Chapter 542. The night was hazy. Under the flickering candlelight, Tung Qingshan was sitting in front of his desk, holding a brush and drawing on a piece of paper. Beside him was the drawing paper of his master, Zhuge Yuanhong. Qingshan, what are you doing? Li Jun, who was wearing a coat, walked in and smiled. You go to sleep first, I'll be done in a while. Tung Qingshan also drew a set of tiger form fist art blueprint. Then, he simply left some words under each piece of the blueprint. It was either 1 or 2 simple sentences or 1 or 2 lines of a song, explaining the main points of the move on the blueprint. Qingshan, where are you? Li Jun was surprised. I'm just writing secret manuals. Tung Qingshan smiled and did not say anything. He continued writing from the first form of the tiger form fist style until he finished writing the last piece of paper. Then, he took out the stack of paper that his teacher, Zhuge Yuanhong, left a description on the paper. However, this time, the description was much more detailed and serious. If the description of the tiger form fist art was a simple 1 or 2 sentences or a song, then the description of the tiger form fist art was very simple. In that case, every single move of the tiger form fist art had a large number of annotations. It was 10 times more detailed than the previous manual. Qingshan, why did you write these two secret manuals differently? The first one is clearly much cruder. Li Jun was even more confused. Tung Qingshan turned around and smiled at her, not saying much. On the 20th of April in Nanxing County City, young Master Ming, where are we going to eat? Let's go. It's the Spring Rain restaurant up ahead. 3 foppish youths were leading their servants and guards as they swaggered down the street. The young man in the lead had red lips and white teeth. It was obvious that he came from a wealthy family. At this moment, he was also carrying a birdcage. Inside the birdcage was a small bird with emerald green feathers. Occasionally, it would chirp a few times. Walking on the street, no one dared to provoke these 3 good-for-nothing youths. Just by looking at the group of guards and servants behind them, one could tell that their identities were not ordinary. Young Master Ming, please come in. Upon seeing them, the manager of the Spring Rain restaurant welcomed them personally. There's another private room upstairs. Yes. The youth surnamed Meng nodded and looked around the first floor. There were 3 religions and 9 floors on the first floor. It was extremely lively. He smiled and said, "Shopkeeper, it's on the first floor. Let's sit on the first floor today. Second brother, third brother, what do you think?" "We'll listen to young Master Ming." The other 2 youths giggled and replied, "Manager, serve the dishes as usual." Meng's group quickly occupied 3 tables on the first floor. At this moment, the guests from all over the world were still chatting and laughing loudly on the first floor of the Spring Rain restaurant. They couldn't care less about the young master. What kind of people had they not seen after traveling all over the world? "Everyone, do you know why Tung Qingshan, the youngest emptiness realm expert since the creation of the land of the 9 prefectures, attained the emptiness realm at such a young age?" A loud voice resounded in the restaurant. The youth surnamed Meng and the other 2 hedonistic sons turned to look. "Hey, what is the emptiness realm?" Someone immediately shouted. "Haha, you don't even know this? You're ignorant, right? Above the postliminary realm is the innate realm. Above the innate realm is the emptiness realm." Someone immediately shouted. Ever since the rise of the heavenly god palace, the land of the 9 prefectures was in chaos. Many emptiness realm experts attacked the ordinary people. Therefore, the emptiness realm was no longer secret. During peaceful times, many people did not know about the emptiness realm. However, when the land of the 9 prefectures was in chaos, most people knew about it. Tell me, how did Lord Tung Qingshan attain the emptiness realm at such a young age? What kind of treasure did he eat? Immediately, many people shouted. "Everyone, listen to me," the elder with a goatee said proudly. "Ever since Emperor Yu was born, the Taoist sect was created in the land of the 9 prefectures. After that, most of the sects practiced the Taoist sect's cultivation method. However, the martial ancestor of the Mani Temple, martial ancestor Shiga, was also very talented. He created the Buddhist sect's cultivation method, which is different from the Taoist sect. We all know about the Taoist and Buddhist sects. Stop talking nonsense. Tell us, how did Lord Tung Qingshan attain the emptiness realm?" Someone couldn't help but shout. "The land of the 9 prefectures has the Taoist and Buddhist sects." The elder with the goatee stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Now, Lord Tung Qingshan has created the 3rd branch, the branch of internal martial art." Internal martial art? How can there be a branch of internal martial art in the Taoist and Buddhist sects? Many people were suspicious. "Old man, don't brag here," someone immediately shouted. The elder with a goatee glared and said, "I am not bragging. We are also in the territory of Nanxing County, which is not far from Jiangning County. I reckon that those who are well-informed should know that last year, the Gui Yuan sect recruited a large number of youths and sent them to learn fist arts from Lord Tung Qingshan. 3 months later, almost all of them were kicked out. Only a few of them still followed Lord Tung Qingshan. My nephew's son has been in there before. He heard that the fist art is called internal martial art. I know this." Last year, the Gui Yuan sect recruited a large group of youth for Lord Tung Qingshan. At that time, Everyone thought that Lord Tung Shan was Senior Jingyi. When I found out, I sent my son over. Unexpectedly, the Gui Yuan sect said that it was full. Someone in the restaurant chimed in. Yes, it did happen. Many people admitted. The elder with a goatee smiled proudly and said, speaking of internal martial art, it is not an ordinary cultivation method. There is no need to sit cross-legged and cultivate inner strength. Instead, it was another type of cultivation method. Once it is successfully cultivated, the speed of improvement will be very fast. The great disciple of Lord Tung Shan, Tung Shou, is also recorded in the books of the Wanxiang sect. He is a youth with the strength of an innate expert. Judging from his appearance, he was also very young. He became an innate expert because he cultivated internal martial art. Is internal martial art so powerful? Needless to say, since the creation of the land of the 9 prefectures, have you seen anyone reach the emptiness realm at the age of 21? Even Emperor Yu and the heavenly emperor of the Qin Mountains couldn't reach that level. He is only 21 years old. How old was he when he recruited his disciple? How many years did his disciple cultivate internal martial art? Even his disciple reached the innate realm. Internal martial art is really powerful. The entire restaurant was filled with exclamations. Ever since Tung Shan's name spread throughout the land of the 9 prefectures, people have been wondering why Tung Shan was so powerful. No matter how talented he was, there were many talented people in the land of the 9 prefectures. However, why was Tung Shan so powerful? Could it be that the heavens really favored this person? So it is internal martial art. Many people sighed. However, the requirements for cultivating internal martial art are very strict. The elder with a goatee sighed and said, in the past, many people were sent over, and almost all of them were sent back. Only a few people could succeed. Internal martial art is such a powerful cultivation method. It would be strange if the aptitude requirements were not strict. Someone immediately shouted, "Ah, this internal martial art is so powerful. I will also send my grandson to try it." Forget it. Lord Tung Shan had accepted a batch of disciples before, but now he doesn't accept anymore. Do you think that everyone can learn the internal martial arts? Hearing these discussions, the young man with the surname Meng, who had been sitting in the corner, murmured, Lord Tung Shan? His disciple is also an innate expert? Internal martial art? He seemed to be thinking. Second brother, third brother, that's all for today. I will go back first. The young man with the surname Meng didn't even eat. He immediately stood up and left with his servants and guards. Young Master Meng. The other 2 foppish young men looked at each other in confusion. Just like a gust of wind, the words internal martial art appeared in the whole of Yangzhou. The people who had been curious about how Tung Shan could cultivate so fast and what Tung Shan had been doing during the 4 years he had been missing suddenly understood. They all understood. It turned out that the talented Tung Shan had actually created the cultivation method of the branch of internal martial art, which was different from the Taoist sect and the Buddhist sect. They also knew that the branch of internal martial art was very magical. All of Tung Shan's disciples were innate experts. Moreover, it allowed Tung Shan to become the youngest emptiness realm expert in history. For a moment, many people wanted to be Tung Shan's disciple and learn the magical internal martial art. However, Tung Shan refused to accept guests, and Tung Shan didn't accept any disciples. The legend of internal martial art didn't only spread in Yangzhou. It also spread to other places in the land of the 9 prefectures. After all, this was the land of the 9 prefectures. In a world where the strong were respected, a genius who could cultivate faster than Emperor Yu, Heavenly Emperor Qin Ling, martial ancestor Shiga, and poetic sword god Li Taibai naturally attracted everyone's attention. The branch of internal martial art, which was different from the Taoist sect and the Buddhist sect, naturally attracted people's attention. In the Meng residence of Nanxing County City, is this the 3 postures? The young man with the surname Meng was standing in the middle of the courtyard, practicing the 3 postures over and over again. It's too simple. I just need to prepare and punch. Then I need to prepare and punch again. Just like this. What's the point of practicing like this? The young man with the surname Meng practiced for a long time and then gave up. Ever since the day he heard people talking about the legend of Tung Qingshan and heard about the internal martial art in the restaurant, Meng Lutong had a great impact on him. He had been muddle-headed that day. Actually, he was tired of the life of a hedonistic young master. That day, he had been muddle-headed. Actually, he had been tired of the life of a hedonistic young master. He also desired hot blood. He also desired to drink wine and eat meat. He wanted to be a brave man who roamed the Jianghu. This time, he finally woke up. He threw away the birdcage and left his gang of scoundrels. Then, he said to his father solemnly, "Father, I want to learn the internal martial art. I want to become a true expert." Back then, Tung Qingshan had dismissed over 800 youths. Unknowingly, the three postures had been spread out. After all, the moves of the three postures were too simple and easy to spread. Therefore, Meng Lutong also obtained the three postures. However, it was only the superficial three postures. There was no breathing technique to control it. Lutong, Lutong. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Meng Lutong turned his head and saw a fat, middle-aged man running over. The fat man waved a book and said, "Lutong, look at what I got for you." "What?" Meng Lutong looked at the book in surprise. "This is a secret manual that father spent 1,000 silver taels to obtain. This is the secret technique of the tiger form fist art that was passed down in Tongjia village." The fat, middle-aged man didn't care about the sweat on his face and presented the book to his son as if he was presenting a treasure. Meng Lutong looked at the book carefully. There were 3 big words on the book: tiger form fist art. The second chapter has ended. Continue with the third chapter. Chapter 543. Tiger form fist art. The tiger form fist art that Tongjia village doesn't teach to outsiders. Meng Lutong grabbed the secret manual excitedly. "Yes, it wasn't easy for me to get this." The chubby middle-aged man wiped the beads of sweat from his forehead. Meng Lutong hastily opened the secret manual and flipped through the pages quickly. He saw a picture on each page with a sentence or 2 beside it. Meng Lutong's eyes lit up as he read from the first page to the last page. He shouted in surprise, "This is the internal martial art. What are the 3 postures called? There must be a lie. These moves are the right ones." "Huh." The chubby middle-aged man revealed a gratified smile. Meng Lutong didn't care that his father was beside him. He immediately put the secret manual aside and started practicing according to the pictures. Ever since the first manual of the tiger form fist art was leaked, many influential people in many places in Yangzhou obtained the secret manual of the tiger form fist art from different sources. In just a few days, the leak of the tiger form fist art caused a huge uproar. The Gui Yuan sect even announced that if anyone secretly sold the tiger form fist art, they would be arrested and thrown into prison. On the 3rd day after the Gui Yuan sect issued the order, on the 4th day of May, in every county city of Yangzhou's 13 counties, a new guild hall opened. This guild hall was called the Qingshan Guild Hall. On a bustling street in Nanxing County City, hundreds of people surrounded a large mansion. This mansion signboard was wrapped with a red cloth. On the signboard, there were 4 big words: Qingshan Guild Hall. Qingshan Guild Hall? A guild hall dares to name itself this way? Isn't it afraid of offending the Gui Yuan sect? Huh, you don't understand. This guild hall opened this morning. At that time, some people from the Gui Yuan sect were there. Why did this guild hall have such a name? Could it be that Lord Tung Qingshan is also opening a guild hall? Is he going to do business? The people were puzzled and muttered. In their minds, the current Gui Yuan sect was only able to achieve its current prestige under the leadership of Tung Qingshan. Although Tung Qingshan was not the sect leader of the Gui Yuan sect, his status was higher than the sect leader of the Gui Yuan sect. They didn't understand. Why would an emptiness realm expert create such a guild? As time passed, more and more people gathered in front of the hall. I heard that Qingshan Guild Hall has an important announcement this afternoon. It's getting late. It's time to announce it. When the business opened in the morning, the clubhouse announced that there would be an important announcement in the afternoon, causing more and more people to gather in front of the clubhouse. An hour and a half later, the area outside the Qingshan Guild Hall was filled with people. Suddenly, dong, dong, dong. A large number of Guei Yuan sect soldiers, clad in armors, rushed out from the clubhouse and stood in an orderly manner outside the clubhouse of Qingshan, maintaining the order. Soon after, 3 people walked out of the clubhouse of Qingshan. These 3 people were the county governor of Nanxing County, the general of the city guards, and the curator of Qingshan Guild Hall. Haha, everyone! An elder dressed in a dark green cloak cupped his hands and said with a smile, I am the curator of Qingshan Guild Hall of Nanxing County, Wunyan. Today is the opening of Qingshan Guild Hall. I said this morning that there would be an important announcement this afternoon. Immediately, the surrounding people pricked up their ears, and the clamor immediately died down. The curator, Wunyan, said loudly, This important announcement is related to Lord Tung. It's related to the internal martial art. Immediately, suppressed discussions and exclamations sounded. Among the crowd, Meng Lutong, who came with his father and was protected by guards, pricked up his ears and listened attentively. The curator, Wunyan, scanned the crowd and said loudly, A few days ago, the tiger form fist art, which was created by Lord Tung when he was young, was accidentally leaked to the public. When Lord Tung heard this news, he was furious. The crowd whispered to each other and laughed. How could he not be furious? In the land of the 9 prefectures, which of the supreme sects didn't guard their own secret manuals well, forbidding their disciples from teaching it to the public? However, Lord Tung is broad-minded. The curator, Wunyan, said loudly he thought about it and understood. The internal martial art he created was meant to be passed down to his disciples. Since it was leaked to the public, he took it as the will of the heavens. Therefore, he took advantage of the situation and sold the tiger form fist art to everyone in the world at a low price. This way, anyone who wanted to learn the internal martial art could learn it. What? Immediately, the crowd cried out in alarm. It was a mess. It was a mess. Since the creation of the land of the 9 prefectures, which sect didn't cherish their secret manuals? If they leaked their secret manuals and other sects obtained them, wouldn't that make the other sects even stronger? Selling the secret manuals to everyone in the world? What is Lord Tung Qingshan thinking? Lord Tung Qingshan is still young. He is only 23 this year. To reach the peak at such a young age, it's normal for him to be unstable and want to be in the limelight. What a pity. Such a precious secret manual should be hidden and passed down to his own disciples. Many people present were both surprised and sighed. They were surprised that they could see the secret manual of the tiger form fist art, but they sighed because Tung Qingshan was too reckless. Curator, what's the price? Don't sell it for tens of thousands of silver taels. We can't afford it. Someone shouted. It's not expensive to sell an internal martial art manual for tens of thousands of silver taels. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. Another person rebuked. Outside the Qingshan Enterprise, there was a commotion. Everyone, please don't make too much noise. The curator, Wunyan's voice echoed in the street, and the commotion immediately died down. It's not easy to cultivate the internal martial art. The curator said loudly. Even if you have a secret manual to cultivate, I'm afraid only 1 out of 100 people can successfully cultivate it. This sentence was true. In the past, with the guidance of Tung Shou and the others, only 1 out of 20 people successfully cultivated the internal martial art. If one didn't have a master to teach them and only relied on the secret manual, the difficulty would be much higher. We understand. It's normal for such a miraculous fist art to have high aptitude, a bystander shouted. The curator, Wunyan, smiled and said, According to what Lord Tung said, the secret manual that was leaked was the basic secret manual of Tongjia Village. Now, my Qingshan Enterprise is also selling this secret manual. You can also set a price for this kind of secret manual. One tiger form fist art manual only costs 100 taels of silver. What? Only 100 taels of silver? Why is it so little? Everyone present was stunned. In a land of the 9 prefectures, it was very expensive to learn inner strength. Even the hidden dragon ranking and the young phoenix ranking each cost 100 taels of silver. An ordinary inner strength secret manual was usually priced at 1,000 taels of silver. As for the secret manual of the internal martial art, it wasn't strange for it to be sold for several thousand taels of silver. 100 taels of silver. Even in an ordinary village, if all the villagers pooled their money, they could easily gather 100 taels of silver. In other words, 100 taels of silver was enough for an ordinary villager to buy a secret manual and learn the tiger form fist art. "Give me one," someone immediately shouted. "I'll buy 2 as well." Many people immediately shouted. With such a low price, they could buy 2 or 3 books and give them to their friends. "Okay." The curator, Wu Yin, smiled and said in a clear voice, "This tiger form fist art costs 100 taels of silver each. Each person can only buy 10 books at most. However, although this tiger form fist art is real, it is only a basic secret manual of Tengjia village. The cultivation method in it is very rough." These words made young Master Meng Lutong, who was in the crowd, nod his head. During the past few days, he had been practicing the tiger form fist art. Sometimes, there were only 2 lines of the incantation for each picture, which made him feel a little fuzzy. He was unable to determine how to use this technique. With this in mind, Lord Tung personally wrote a secret copy of the tiger form fist art and asked the Gui Yuan sect to print it. The curator, Wu Yin, said loudly, "The pictures in this secret copy of the tiger form fist art are extremely detailed and precise. Moreover, the description of each move is extremely detailed. It can be said that it is as if a teacher personally taught you. Moreover, this was personally written by Lord Tung." Immediately, many people became envious. A book personally written by an emptiness realm expert? A secret copy? Meng Lutong's eyes immediately lit up. This is the secret copy of the tiger form fist art. With this, the curator, Wu Yin, took a thick, thread-bound book with a golden paper cover. This secret copy of the tiger form fist art was 5 times thicker than the rough copy of the tiger form fist art. When held in one's hand, it felt like a huge brick. On the golden cover, there were 3 big black words, tiger form fist art. The words were written in a flamboyant style, as if a tiger was pouncing. Having a secret copy is equivalent to having a teacher to teach you. The curator, Wu Yin, smiled and said, "However, it is not easy to make a secret copy. Moreover, Lord Tung has ordered that there are a total of 13 Qingshan enterprise in the 13 counties of Yangzhou. Each enterprise will only sell 10 copies of the secret copy a day. Today is the 4th of May, and the sale will last until the 16th of May. Stop. In other words, from the 16th of May onwards, the secret copy of the tiger form fist art will not be sold. However, today is the opening day of the Qingshan enterprise. Therefore, there is no restriction. Starting from tomorrow, we will sell 10 copies a day at most." When the curator, Wu Yin, finished speaking, many people immediately asked, "How much is a secret copy of the tiger form fist art?" Wu Yin smiled and said, "A secret copy of the tiger form fist art costs 1,000 taels of gold." This price caused everyone to gasp. 1,000 taels of gold? That was 100,000 taels of silver. It was not something an ordinary person could buy. So expensive. It's too expensive. Many people couldn't help but exclaim. This is the ordinary version of the tiger form fist art, or the secret copy of the tiger form fist art. If you want to buy it, please do it as soon as possible. From the 16th of May onwards, all the large Qingshan enterprise will no longer sell the secret copy of the tiger form fist art. The curator, Wu Yin, smiled faintly and said, "Even if you sell 100 copies of the secret copy of the tiger form fist art, that amount of money is nothing to Lord Tung. There is a reason why we are selling the secret copy until the 16th of May. because this day is the day that Lord Tung will establish his sect. Selling the secret copy of the tiger form fist art is also to celebrate Lord Tung's establishment of his sect. Everyone in the room began to clamor. Establishing a sect? On the 16th of May, Tung Qingshan will establish his sect? Although he will establish his sect. However, Lord Tung will not be accepting disciples on that day. The curator, Wen Yin, smiled faintly and said, if anyone can cultivate inner strength by relying on the secret copy of the tiger form fist art, it means that he has the aptitude to cultivate the internal martial art. He can then head to Tung Jia village in the Great Yin Mountain and learn the more profound fist arts of the internal martial art. Chapter 3 ends. Continue writing Chapter 4. Chapter 544. The influence of the tiger form fist art being spread to the outside world was clearly not as great as the influence of tiger form fist art's establishment on the 16th of May, Tung Qingshan. For a moment, in Yangzhou's various county cities, inns, brothels, and other places, people were talking about Tung Qingshan's founding of a sect. Before the 13 Qingshan guild halls made this matter public, the invitation for the establishment of Tung Qingshan's sect had already been sent to 5 of the 7 major sects in 9 regions: the Heavenly God Palace, the Snowhawk Hall, the Ying family, the Mani Temple, and the Gui Yuan sect. Although the Gui Yuan sect and Tung Qingshan have a close relationship, sending invitations is a rule that cannot be ignored. As for the other 2 sects of the land of the 9 prefectures, Emperor Yu's Hall and the Shooting Sun God Mountain, the deaths of Shingon Tu and Yu Tonghai had already caused enmity between Tung Qingshan and these 2 great sections. Even if he sent an invitation, the other party would not come. Naturally, there was no need to do so. The Mani Temple was located at the border between Rongzhou and Liangzhou. It occupied a vast area. This temple was known as the largest temple in the land of the 9 prefectures. There were more than 1 million monks and lay disciples living in Mani Temple. In such a large temple, the chanting of sutras during the morning classes could be heard for hundreds of miles. Every day, a large number of people came here to worship. In the Mani Temple on the Buddha Mountain. The Buddha Mountain was the place where martial ancestor Shiga meditated for 9 years before he comprehended the Golden Buddha to perfection. Now, only Emptiness Realm Buddhist grandmasters were qualified to enter the Buddha Mountain. At this moment, a white-browed old monk flew into a cave halfway up the Buddha Mountain. Grandmaster, the white-browed old monk put his palms together and said respectfully. There was a monk dressed in a yellow robe sitting cross-legged in the cave, facing the mountain wall. What's the matter? As soon as he opened his mouth, faint sounds of Zen could be heard. Grandmaster, the white-browed old monk said respectfully. Tung Qingshan, who became famous last year and attained the emptiness realm at the age of 21, has sent someone to deliver the invitation. He said that they were going to open the mountain and establish the sect on the 16th of May and hold a grand ceremony. I wonder if Grandmaster wants to go. I'm not going. A calm voice sounded. You could decide on this matter. Yes, Grandmaster. After the white-browed old monk put his palms together and bowed, he left, leaving the thin figure sitting facing the wall. As long as they received an invitation from Tung Qingshan, these sects did not have much enmity with Tung Qingshan, so they naturally gave him face and led their troops over. Although the relationship between the Heavenly God Palace and Tung Qingshan could be said to be clear, at the very least, both sides did not shed all pretenses of cordiality. Payson had only used his tricks secretly. Knowing the relationship between Tung Qingshan and the Undying Phoenix, Payson didn't want to fight with Tung Qingshan unless it was absolutely necessary. On the night of May 15th, on the Great Yin Mountain. Last year, the Great Yin Mountain started a large-scale construction project. Now, a sect that could accommodate almost 100,000 people had been built. As the grand ceremony for the establishment of the sect was going to be held tomorrow, the place was very noisy. Everywhere was brightly lit. Many people were busy making arrangements and inspecting various places in preparation for the grand ceremony tomorrow. Tung Qingshan supported Li Jun as they walked slowly into the sect. At this moment, Li Jun's unborn child was only 8 or 9 days away. Teacher, 3 people nearby, bowed respectfully. They were Tung Shou, Yang Dong, and Shui Xian. Since they were going to establish the sect, Yang Dong naturally led the 8,000 members of the Xiongshou gang over. Because of the elixir of the North Sea, the Xiongshou gang had 1,000 first-rated warriors. This group of people had become the guards of the sect. Are you almost ready? Tung Qingshan asked with a smile. Yang Dong hastily said, Teacher, everything is ready. Yes. Tung Qingshan nodded. Yang Dong was in charge of these mundane matters. Nothing would go wrong. Yang Dong, Tung Shou, and Shui Xian looked at each other and bowed tactfully. Then they left. Qingshan, why did you choose the name of the sect? Xing Yi sect? Li Jun looked around and couldn't help but ask. The sect left by Emperor Yu was called Emperor Yu's Hall. The sect of Heavenly Emperor Qinling was the Ying family. The sect left by the Northeast King Hong Tian was Hong Tian City. Qingshan, why isn't your sect called Qingshan sect? Qingshan sect? Why is it called Xing Yi sect? Tung Qingshan looked up at the full moon in the sky. Xing Yi sect? This fist art was taught to him by his teacher, Tung Bo Lei, in his previous life. The Xing Yi martial art was perfected by generations of heroes in his previous life. Tung Qingshan came to the land of the 9 prefectures, a place where the spiritual qi was many times more abundant than in his previous life. Tung Qingshan was able to make a breakthrough in the Grandmaster realm. I already have a lot. I don't need to be greedy. Tung Qingshan said slowly, Xing Yi sect, Xing Yi sect. My internal martial art is called Xing Yi martial art. Xing Yi sect is more suitable for this name. More suitable? I don't know much about internal martial art. Li Jun didn't ask further. She didn't know how excited Tung Qingshan was at this moment. Xing Yi sect. I want my internal martial art to be passed down in the land of the 9 prefectures for generations to come. Tomorrow will be the establishment day of the Xing Yi sect. Tung Qingshan felt that he was one step closer to his goal. However, my internal martial art has too few types of fist arts. Unfortunately, with my current realm, it is very difficult to create fist arts suitable for post-liminary realm or innate realm experts. If I reach the insightful emptiness realm, it will be much easier. If I can reach the omnipotent realm, I'm afraid it will be very easy for me to create many fist arts. The reason why a sect is powerful is because it has a lot of resources. Emperor Yu's Hall and Mani Temple are powerful because they have a lot of secret techniques. Even those who aren't talented have a lot of secret techniques. There will always be a secret technique suitable for them. Only then can a sect be powerful. Tung Qingshan was very clear. If the branch of internal martial art was to be on the same level as the Buddhist sect and the Taoist sect, then Tung Qingshan also had to reach the level of Emperor Yu and martial ancestor Shiga. If I hear the Tao in the morning, I can die without regrets. I won't slack off for 500 years. I will reach the omnipotent realm one day. Tung Qingshan looked at the bright moon, and his heart was filled with determination. The night passed, and the day arrived. The Xing Yi sect in the Great Yin Mountain was filled with a festive atmosphere. Many maids and guards could be seen everywhere in the Great Yin Mountain. Over 2,000 men, women, old, and young of Tongjia village and over 10,000 people from the Gui Yuan sect filled every corner of the Xing Yi sect in the Great Yin Mountain. There are so many people here today. Tung Qingshan stood in front of the great hall of the Xing Yi sect and looked at the people in the plaza below. Beside him were his 3 disciples, Tung Shou, Shui Xian, and Yang Dong. Tung Qingshan raised his eyebrows. He could clearly feel a powerful emptiness realm expert approaching. The people of Snowhawk Hall are here. This caused Tung Qingshan to have a better impression of Snowhawk Hall. The day of the founding of a sect was the biggest day. The fact that the other sects were able to arrive early meant that they attached great importance to this founding sect. After a while, Snowhawk Hall has arrived. A sudden voice came from the foot of the mountain. The people of Snowhawk Hall are here, Yang Dong said, pleasantly surprised. They're really fast, Shuexian couldn't help but say, as expected of a sect that has snowhawks and can ride snowhawks. They're really fast. Among the 5 supreme sects that were invited, Snowhawk Hall was the first to arrive after the Gui Yuan sect. Tung Qingshan looked down. Soon, dozens of people from the Snowhawk Hall, led by a black-robed old man with a hooked nose, entered the plaza from the main entrance below. Let's go. Follow me down to welcome them. Tung Qingshan ordered and brought his 3 disciples with him. Haha, I should call you Brother Qingshan. The hawk-nosed, black-robed old man laughed. Brother Wu, don't make fun of me. Tung Qingshan smiled and responded, At that time, I had no choice. The black-cloaked old man smiled and nodded. Then, he looked around and said, Brother Qingshan, your Xingyi sect is really good. I have seen the secret manual of the tiger form fist art that you sold previously. Although I still don't understand what is going on with this internal martial art. However, I can also see that your internal martial art is obviously different from the Taoist and Buddhist sects. Brother Wu, my internal martial art can be summarized in one sentence. You are sitting quietly to cultivate your inner strength. As for the internal martial art, you are practicing the fist art to cultivate your inner strength. Tung Qingshan said casually. The black-cloaked old man laughed. Then, with a slightly serious expression, he lowered his voice and said, Brother Qingshan, why did you spread the secret manual of the tiger form fist art? Tung Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. The black-cloaked old man didn't wait for Tung Qingshan's reply and continued. You sold the secret manual at a price of only 100 taels of silver. Obviously, you want your tiger form fist art to be spread throughout the land of the 9 prefectures. Aren't you trying to snatch people from all over the land of the 9 prefectures? Let's not talk about whether the Snow Hawk Hall will agree to it or not. I'm afraid that the Heavenly God Palace and the Mani Temple will not agree to it. Everyone could see Tung Qingshan's move. It was obviously a move to snatch disciples. However, only Tung Qingshan could use this move. This was because in the land of the 9 prefectures, regardless of whether it was the Taoist or Buddhist sects, or Tung Qingshan's internal martial art, they all cultivated inner strength. After cultivating inner strength, they could switch to cultivating the secret manuals of other sects. Spreading the secret manuals to the whole world would cause instability in the world. Secondly, it would benefit other sections. No one would do it. However, Tung Qingshan was different. Indeed, after cultivating the internal martial art and cultivating inner strength, they could cultivate the secret manuals of the Taoist or Buddhist sections. However, under Tung Qingshan's secret arrangement, the internal martial art had already spread to a godly level. In addition, Tung Qingshan himself, a 21-year-old emptiness realm expert, was a living signboard. In addition to the publicity, only 1 in 100 people could cultivate the internal martial art. Once they cultivated the internal martial art, their achievements would definitely be higher than those of the Taoist or Buddhist sections. With this publicity, if someone cultivated inner strength, they would naturally go to Tung Qingshan's Xingyi sect. This scene made the other sects of the land of the 9 prefectures unhappy. Isn't this the same as snatching people from my territory? Brother Wu, I will discuss these matters in detail with everyone after the ceremony. Tung Qingshan said with a smile. Yes, the people of the Heavenly God Palace are here. The people of the Heavenly God Palace are fast. The black-cloaked elder also sensed it. Pei San, who was dressed in a loose white cloak, walked on the spacious mountain road with his daughter, Pei Shuilian. Father, look. Pei Shuilian looked ahead in surprise at the tall stone tablet in front of the Xingyi sect. Pei San took a closer look and saw a few vertical lines of words carved on the stone tablet in flamboyant calligraphy. Emphasis on form and light on meaning. Emphasis on form and light on meaning. See the form and take the meaning. Emphasis on form and light on meaning. These are the three realms. If you can comprehend the meaning, you will comprehend the essence of the internal martial art of Xingyi sect. You will be able to attain the great Tao, Tung Qing Shan. The lines of words on the stone tablet shocked Pei San. Every word was like a wild beast. Sometimes it was as ferocious as a fierce tiger. Sometimes it was as agile as a monkey. Sometimes it was as brutal as a demonic dragon. Pei San exclaimed inwardly, "The internal martial art is indeed extraordinary." Then Pei San raised his head. In the distance, above the main gate, there were three words written from right to left on the plaque: Xingyi sect. End of Chapter 4. Continue writing Chapter 5. Chapter 545. After the heavenly god palace arrived, the Ying family and the Mani temple arrived as well. Now, the five supreme sects invited by Tung Qingshan had all arrived. Sovereign Pei, everyone, I will go and worship the heavens and earth. Tung Qingshan cupped his hands and parted with a group of Emptiness Realm experts. At this moment, over 2,000 people were standing neatly on the plaza in front of the Xingyi sect's Great Hall. The person in the lead was Tung Qingshan, and behind him were Tung Shou, Yang Dong, and Shui Xian. Behind these three great disciples were the 98 third-generation disciples and all the people of Tongjia village. From the day Tung Qingshan created the Xingyi sect, all the people of Tongjia village became members of the Xingyi sect. Music! Tung Qingshan shouted coldly. Suddenly, the heavy sound of the bell rang out in the square. The sound of the bell was so heavy that it seemed to be pounding on the hearts of the people, shaking their souls. The entire plaza seemed to tremble. When the 81 bell rings ended, the sound of drumming began. For a moment, the entire plaza was filled with the sound of drumming. After a long time, the drumming stopped. Sacrifice! Tung Qingshan shouted coldly. Immediately, burly men of almost the same height, wearing red cloth strips on their heads and topless, carried giant trays. On the trays, there was a whole roasted cow, a whole roasted lamb, and all kinds of fruits and pastries. There were a lot of offerings, and a total of 81 burly men carried them up to the altar. Tung Qingshan took 3 incense sticks from the priest and said loudly, "Kneel." Rumble. Over 2,000 people knelt down in unison. Everyone was respectful and didn't dare to make a sound. They stared at the huge cauldron in front of them. Even the arrogant Pei San and the others of the heavenly god palace quieted down. There were many people in the plaza, but not a single noise could be heard. Heaven above, today, the priest standing beside Tung Qingshan began reciting the sacrificial rites. His voice reverberated in the air. Tung Qingshan held the incense sticks and looked at the huge cauldron in front of him while listening to the rites. After a long time, the priest finished reading. "Light the incense," the priest shouted. Everyone was kneeling. Only Tung Qingshan stood up. He respectfully walked to the front of the cauldron and inserted 3 incense sticks into the cauldron. Then, Tung Qingshan retreated and knelt down again. Yes, at Tung Qingshan's command, everyone knelt down. After the 3 kneeling and 9 kowtows ceremony. Then, he brought the sacrificial offerings to the fireplace that had been prepared beforehand and burned them all. It was a sign that heaven and earth had eaten it. Finally, the music was played again. When the drumming stopped, the ceremony was officially over. Qingshan, after you worship the heavens and inform the heavens from now on, the Xingyi sect will be officially established, Pei San said with a smile. Tung Qingshan smiled and shook his head in his heart. Due to the influence of his previous life, he didn't really believe in worshipping the heavens and deities. However, in the land of the 9 prefectures, even the proud and aloof Pei San followed the rules when worshipping the heavens. Almost everyone in the land of the 9 prefectures attached great importance to worshipping the heavens. Therefore, Tung Qingshan had to follow the rules and complete everything. On the day of the establishment of the sect, all the guests of the Xingyi sect gathered at the ceremony to congratulate the establishment of the sect. After drinking, the representatives of the 5 supreme sects came to a quiet living room. These 5 representatives were Pei San of the Heavenly God Palace, Ing Haitong of the Ing family, Wu Luo of the Snow Hawk Hall, Fan Kong of the Mani Temple, and Tung Qing Shan, although the sovereign of the Gui Yuan sect was Zhuge Yuan Hong. The Gui Yuan sect didn't have an emptiness realm expert. Logically speaking, it was impossible for them to control the entire prefecture. In the eyes of the supreme sects, the leader of the Gui Yuan sect was Tung Qing Shan. Brother Qing Shan, you should know why we are here. Ing Haitong said with a wry smile. This time, you spread the secret manual of the tiger form fist art. Billions of people in the world obtained this set of fist technique. Once they succeeded in practicing it, they would be able to cultivate it. I'm afraid that most of them will come to the Xing sect. As time passes, the land of the 9 prefectures will become the territory of the Xing sect to select disciples. Tell me, what should we, the sects, do? This is also the first time we have encountered such a thing. The black-robed old man from Snowhawk Hall laughed. Only Tung Qing Shan could do this kind of thing. No one else could learn it, even if they wanted to. Qing Shan, tell me, what do you want to do? Pei Sen asked with a faint smile. The white-browed old monk, Fan Kong, also looked at Tung Qing Shan. The meaning of these 4 parties was very clear. They were not fools. It was impossible for them to watch Tung Qing Shan do this. Although the people of the world were secretly learning the internal martial art, the various sects couldn't forcefully stop them. However, there were ways to weaken the influence. They could even work together to suppress the Xing sect. Everyone, Tung Qing Shan smiled and shook his head. The Xing sect is short on manpower. We are not a threat to you at all. We will be a threat in the future, Pei San said with a smile. Tung Qing Shan nodded and said, I am very confident in the branch of the internal martial art. However, I, Tung Qing Shan, as the founder of the Xing sect, can swear that the Xing sect will not fight for hegemony in the world. We will only stay in the 5 counties of Yangzhou. Outside of these 5 counties, the Xing sect will not occupy another county. Not fight for hegemony. The leaders of the 4 feudal vassals were shocked. The reason why they didn't fight for hegemony was because they knew that it would be difficult for them to do so. For example, the Wanxiang sect was not strong. That was why they chose to walk this path. Perhaps they had accumulated a lot of strength over the years. However, they could never fight for hegemony in the world. If they did that, they would incur the wrath of the people in the world. However, the Xing sect was different. Tung Qing Shan's potential was limitless. In the future, he might become an omnipotent expert and unify the world. Even if Tung Qing Shan could not reach the level of Emperor Yu, it would not be difficult for him to reach the level of Hong Tian, the king of the Northeast. Why did Tung Qing Shan block this path? The land of 5 counties is enough. Tung Qing Shan smiled and said, Everyone, don't worry. I will not fight for hegemony. I will make this the first rule of the Xing sect. Moreover, I will announce this rule to the world soon so that everyone in the world knows about it. Everyone, if this is the case, you should all be relieved. Moreover, the cultivation of the internal martial art is very strict. Only 1 in 100 people can succeed. Tung Qing Shan shook his head and said, Even if this fist art spreads, it will not affect the foundation of your sections. Pei San, Ing Haitong, and the others looked at each other and smiled. Only 1 in 100 people could succeed. Such a strict requirement. In their opinion, the number of internal martial art cultivators in the land of the 9 prefectures was definitely more than that of the Taoist sects. The number of Buddhist sects was much less. This would not affect their foundation. In addition, the Xing sect would publicly announce that they would not fight for hegemony in the land of the 9 prefectures. Just like the Wanxiang sect. That way, there would be no threat at all. After all, once this was announced to the world, no one would dare to disobey. Otherwise, they would be besieged by the world. Moreover, the hearts of the people in their own sects would be unstable. How would you know what I am thinking? Tung Qing Shan laughed inwardly. The internal martial art is different from the Buddhist sect and the Taoist sects. As long as one has some achievements in the cultivation, even if it is only small success, one's physical strength should be at least 3 to 4,000 jin. As for the meridians, the small success of the internal martial art. Even if the meridians were not completely opened, they would at least be partially opened. Once I switch to cultivating the secret inner strength technique, I will soon have a more vigorous inner strength. Just like when Tang Qing and Tang Qinghu cultivated the vigor of the reckless bull. Although Tang Qinghu had only reached small success in the internal martial art, he could still reach small success in the vigor of the reckless bull. Physical strength of several thousand jin and inner strength of several thousand jin. I can reach the explosive force of 10,000 jin. That is the level of a first-rated warrior. Teng Qingshan thought inwardly. This was the advantage of the internal martial art, but the combination of physical strength and inner strength. The small success of the internal martial art can be compared to a first-rated warrior. If the achievement is higher and most of the meridians are opened, like the vigor of the reckless bull, one can cultivate to the 7th or 8th level in one go. With the combination of physical strength and inner strength, one can have the explosive force of tens of thousands of jin. Teng Qingshan was very confident. There are 2 to 300 million people in Yangzhou. Within these 2 to 300 million people, I can cultivate millions of internal martial art experts. Millions of internal martial art experts. The lower level would be second-rated warriors. Normally, they would be first-rated warriors. In other words, the Xing-Yi sect can easily form an army of more than 100,000 first-rated warriors. Teng Qingshan had thought of this long ago. However, Teng Qingshan also knew if the branch of internal martial art is too powerful, it will lead to internal division. Just like how the Taoist sect split into many sects, if the branch of internal martial art is ambitious, it will also split into many sections. Therefore, the best solution is to simply give up the Xing-Yi sect's ambition to become the world's hegemon. Without the ambition, the Xing-Yi sect is extremely powerful. Then, it will naturally become a transcendent holy land. Without the ambition, even if there were some ambitious people in the Xing-Yi sect, they would not be able to use the Xing-Yi sect. After all, firstly, the martial ancestor had left a message. Secondly, he had announced it to the world. Thirdly, the entire Xing-Yi sect recognized this. By that time, the Xing-Yi sect would be the undisputed #1 sect in the world. It would become a holy land that surpassed the other sects in the land of the 9 prefectures. Although it would not be a hegemon, no other force in the land of the 9 prefectures could compete with it. However, all of this will take time. I still need a large number of secret manuals of internal martial art. Teng Qingshan thought to himself. There was still a long way to go. Teng Qingshan, the martial ancestor, had to work hard for everything. When the Xing-Yi sect appeared in the land of the 9 prefectures, in the depths of the desolate land in the distant south. Haha, it's finally done. It's finally done. A hoarse voice sounded. A gray-cloaked man with a hideous scar on his face could be seen dashing southwards like a beam of light. After experiencing the death of his son, the extermination of his sect, and the disfigurement of his own face, Guiyong finally comprehended the last obstacle and reached the emptiness realm. The speed of an emptiness realm expert was astonishing. After an unknown period of time, whoosh, his face was covered with scars, but his cold eyes stared at the forest in front of him. In the forest, especially on the trees, there were many houses. These houses were built on the branches of the trees. All kinds of conversations could be heard. The number of savages here was unprecedentedly high. Moreover, every one of the savages here was at least 1 zhang, 5 meters tall. They were like giants. Some of them were even taller. This is it. I'm finally here. Guiyong thought to himself. 5 chapters were completed. The 10th chapter, A Feudal Lord, was completed. The next chapter would be the 11th chapter. Please give your monthly votes and recommendation votes to Tomato if you have a vote. Clicking on the recommend monthly votes to support author would do. Voting would make Tomato very motivated. Tomato needs everyone's support. Everyone, are you not going to vote? Chapter 546. The East Flower Garden of the Xingyi sect was where Tung Qingshan and Li Jun lived. Qingshan, Zhuge Yuanhong, hurriedly walked into the East Flower Garden. He immediately saw two people sitting at a stone table not far away. Tung Qingshan and his grandfather, Tung Yunlong. Sovereign Zhuge. Tung Yunlong laughed and stood up, cupping his hands. Uncle Tung. Zhuge Yuanhong also cupped his hands and smiled. He immediately looked at Tung Qingshan and said anxiously, Qingshan, I just heard. The Xingyi sect will never conquer the world? Why are you so muddle-headed? If you announce this to the world, won't your descendants have to hide in the 5 counties forever? Teacher. Tung Qingshan smiled and shook his head. I have my own thoughts. You sighed? Zhuge Yuanhong shook his head and sighed. You told me before that the Xingyi sect will follow the path of the Wanxiang sect. However, you don't have to announce it to the world. Won't you block the way? Announcing it to the world was not a joke. It was the same as being monitored by the people of the world. If the Xingyi sect tried to expand its territory, it would go against the will of the people and be laughed at by the world. If the army of the Xingyi sect went on an expedition, it would be unreasonable. The morale would be low, and the sect would be unstable. There would be no chance to expand. Teacher. Tung Qingshan shook his head. Why do we want to conquer the world? Whether it's Heavenly Emperor Qin Ling or Emperor Yu, they can only conquer the world for a while. When they die, the world will still fall apart. When they conquer the world, there will be countless casualties. When the world is divided, there will be countless casualties. This unification will lead to division. This is not good for the world. It is not good for the sect. Why bother to unify the world? Tung Qingshan looked to the south and said, Martial ancestor Shiga saw it clearly. After he reached the omnipotent realm, he created many secret scriptures of the Buddhism sect. He also made the Buddhism sect spread throughout Rongzhou and Liangzhou. He made the people of Rongzhou and Liangzhou absolutely loyal to the Mani Temple. This is the way to prosperity. The influence of religion on people was astonishing. Qingshan, the Xingyi sect, is not the Mani Temple. It is not a religion. Zhuge Yuanhong shook his head and said, in his opinion, even if the Xingyi sect did not fight for hegemony in the world, there was no need for the Xingyi sect to announce it to the world. Only then would there be room for negotiation. All right, that's enough. Zhuge Yuanhong knew that it was too late to say anything now. Tung Qingshan smiled and didn't say anything. He just thought to himself, 10 or 20 years later, he would see the Xingyi sect. Only the people of the world would know the uniqueness of the internal martial arts. Uncle Tung, what are you writing? Zhuge Yuanhong walked to Tung Yunlong's side. Tung Yunlong stood in front of the stone table and pointed at the name list on the table. He smiled and said, the people of Tangjia village are also disciples of the Xingyi sect. Therefore, together with Qingshan, we added Tangjia village's name list to the Xingyi sect's name list. The main thing is to divide the 2nd-generation disciples and the 3rd-generation disciples. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded and said, that's right. It is very troublesome. Tung Yunlong sighed and said, when Qingshan was young, he created the tiger form fist art. It became the secret fist art of Tangjia village. It was only taught to males and not females. Most of the males in the village have practiced it. Now, we have to divide them into the 2nd-generation disciples and the 3rd-generation disciples. It is really difficult. Tung Qingshan nodded and said with a smile, for example, Uncle Yonglei and the others are my elders. Qinghu is of the same generation as me. As for the Hong generation, they're my juniors. It is obvious that they belong to 3 generations, but they have to be placed among the 2nd and 3rd-generation disciples. It is indeed difficult. As a sect, there is no doubt that the founder of the sect was the 1st-generation disciple. As for the 1st generation, only the founder of the sect was qualified to be listed. Otherwise, why would he be called the founder? Therefore, in Tongjia village, even if the generation was higher than Tung Shan, as long as they practiced the internal martial arts, they would at most be the second-generation disciples. There were also many people who were listed as the third-generation disciples. Qinghu is a second-generation disciple. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at the name list in surprise. Yes, Qinghu was one of the first batch of people who practiced the tiger form fist art and developed inner strength. Tung Yunlong said with a smile. He still remembered the scene of a group of men learning fist art from the young Tang Shan. At that time, how could he have imagined that? A young man from the village could actually become the founder of the sect. Teacher, Tung Shan looked at Zhuge Yuanhong apologetically and said, asking Qinghu and the others to leave the Black Armored Corps this matter. You and I are master and disciple. Why are you talking so much? Shan, you have helped the Gui Yuan sect too much. If it weren't for you, Qinghu Island would have already destroyed the Gui Yuan sect. In the sect, I just asked the 10 people from the Tongjia village to leave and join the Xing Yi sect, Zhuge Yuanhong said with a smile. Actually, Zhuge Yuanhong felt that he owed Tung Shan a lot. In terms of kindness, he really didn't teach Tung Shan anything. The internal martial arts was unique to Tung Shan. On the contrary, the Gui Yuan sect had received a lot from Tung Shan. Last time, when Tung Shan wanted to establish a sect, many elders were extremely angry. This made Zhuge Yuanhong feel guilty. As the sovereign of the Gui Yuan sect, he had to think for the sake of the Gui Yuan sect. However, he also knew that Tung Shan had done enough for the Gui Yuan sect. Teacher, Tung Shan said with a smile, the Gui Yuan sect will gradually move to Yong and County in the west. When the time comes, the Gui Yuan sect will be in Yong and County, while the Xing Yi sect will be in the Great Yin Mountain. The distance between the two places will be very far, so I can't stay in Yong and County all the time. However, teacher, don't worry. I will arrange this well. Although Tung Shan was the sovereign of the Xing Yi sect, most of the internal affairs of the Xing Yi sect were handled by his second disciple, Yang Dong. As for Tung Shan himself, besides cultivating, he would accompany his wife, Li Jun. According to the doctor, Lil Jun, don't go out these 2 days. The baby could be born at any time. Tung Shan held Li Jun's hand and took a walk in the East Flower Garden. It's okay. Li Jun smiled carelessly. By the way, Shan, will the Heavenly God Palace, the Ing family, and the Mani Temple be at ease if the Xing Yi sect doesn't fight for hegemony? According to what Shan said, I finally understand. If the internal martial art cultivators continue to develop in this way, it will be very scary in the future. Will the Heavenly God Palace and the others just watch us grow stronger? Of course not. Tung Shan shook his head. However, the Heavenly God Palace and the Mani Temple only have a vague understanding of the internal martial art. They don't know that even if they have a small achievement in the internal martial art, then they will cultivate the secret inner strength technique. If they work together, they will definitely reach the level of a second-rated warrior. If they have a high achievement, they will reach the level of a first-rated warrior. Some of the elites are even qualified to be ranked in the Earth ranking. They don't know. That's why they are at ease. When they find out how scary the internal martial art is, they will definitely take action. Tung Shan was very clear about this. However, when they find out about this, they will definitely be internal martial art cultivators. Many of them will have a small achievement. By that time, it will probably be several years later. The Xing Yi sect has developed the fastest in the past few years. In the past few years, we can recruit people quickly. When they find out about this, we will suppress them. The foundation of the Xing Yi sect has already been established. Tung Shan smiled. What can they do to me? After all, they all agreed to it. Tung Shan was bullying the other sects because they didn't know much about the internal martial art. The problem now is that there are too few teachers who can teach the disciples. Tung Shan shook his head helplessly. Fortunately, there are many people in the Tongjia village who are proficient in the tiger form fist art. After a few years, the young disciples of the third generation will also have experience. They will be able to teach the disciples who have just entered the sect. If teacher Zhuge Yuanhong didn't mention the matter of establishing a sect, if his master, Zhuge Yuanhong, had not mentioned the matter of establishing a sect, originally, Tung Qingshan didn't want to be in a hurry. Now it was better. Although the sect would expand rapidly in the beginning, it would be much busier. However, the Xingyi sect would also become stronger earlier. Li Jun suddenly covered her abdomen. What's wrong, Li Jun? Tung Qingshan saw Li Jun's expression and immediately guessed the problem. Maybe I'm about to give birth. Li Jun's forehead was covered in sweat as she hastily said, "Hold on for a while. I'll call people immediately." Tung Qingshan immediately used the sound transmission technique to inform the doctors, midwives, and the others who were already prepared. With the sound transmission technique, a group of people living in the lower courtyard of the East Flower Garden immediately picked up various tools and came over. After a while, in the East Flower Garden, outside the wing room, a group of people gathered. Tung Yongfan, Yuan Lan, and Qing Yu, who had been living here for the past few days, also rushed over. More than 10 people gathered outside. Quick, quick, come in with hot water. The female disciple who was holding the hot water in the distance also knew martial arts. She held the wooden basin of hot water and dashed towards the wing room as light as a swallow. However, Tung Qingshan was outside the wing room. He kept pacing back and forth as he muttered something. Haha, Qingshan, don't go. You're also the leader of a sect. Calm down and sit down. Tung Yongfan laughed. Tung Qingshan glanced at his father. Calm down? His state of mind, which had been tempered by life and death situations for a long time, could not be stabilized at this moment. Yongfan, don't talk about Qingshan. Tung Yunlong laughed. When Alan gave birth to Qingshan, you were even more anxious than Qingshan. I am different from him. Tung Yongfan laughed. I am also a blacksmith. Qingshan is the sovereign. When it comes to this matter, there is no difference between the sovereign and the blacksmith, Tung Yunlong said with a smile. Just when there was laughter outside the wing room. Boom! In the hot summer, a sudden clap of thunder made Tung Qingshan's heart tremble. He couldn't help but look up at the sky and saw that it was gray. In just a short while, raindrops the size of beans came crashing down. This rainstorm came without warning, causing the group of people who were originally outside the wing room to immediately rush into the corridor. This rainstorm comes so quickly. It doesn't rain early or late. The baby is about to give birth, and it rains. Tung Yunlong and the group of people looked up at the sky. At this moment, the sky and the earth were already covered with a curtain of rain. The rainstorm smashed everywhere. I think Qingshan's baby is not ordinary. It rains at this time. Tung Yongfan and the group of people discussed happily. On the other hand, Tung Qingshan was even more anxious and confused. Pa, pa, pa. The rainstorm continued. Rumble, there was a faint sound of thunder in the clouds in the sky. The rain became heavier. Wah, the high-pitched cry of a baby suddenly rang out. Tung Qingshan suddenly stood still and stared at the door of the wing room. Chapter 1 to Chapter 11, 20 Years of Wind and Cloud begins. Chapter 5:47. She gave birth, she gave birth. In the corridor, Tung Yunlong, Tung Yongfan, Yuan Lan, Qing Yu, and the others were all excited and expectant. Tung Qingshan stared at the door without blinking. Creak! The door opened, and a wave of hot air filled the air. The midwife walked out with a wrapped baby. Congratulations, Sovereign. The midwife was a bit reserved in front of Tung Qingshan. She's a daughter. A girl? Tung Yongfan widened his eyes, and Yuan Lan glared at him with dissatisfaction. It was normal for rural people to value boys more than girls. After all, girls would marry outside the village in the future. This was also the reason why Tongjia village set the rule that the tiger form fist art was only taught to males and not females. However, Tung Qingshan didn't care about this. Give it to me. Tung Shan held the baby with even more care than when he took the dreamy cloud-white fruit and the grass of immortality. Her eyes are dark. Tung Shan held his own flesh and felt that it was very magical. The crying baby gradually became softer at this moment. His pair of small eyes stared at Tung Shan, as if there was something about this giant in front of him that attracted him. She probably didn't understand the meaning of being a father. So magical. Holding his daughter, Tung Shan felt that he was connected to the baby girl. Yes, it was the feeling of being connected by blood. Her body has my, Tung Shan's bloodline. Tung Shan looked at the baby girl in his arms and thought to himself, in the future, she will pass my bloodline to her child. Her child will also continue to pass my bloodline on. Everyone's life has its limit. No one can live forever. However, the heavens have a way to pass this bloodline on forever. His daughter's bloodline was connected by blood. Suddenly, Tung Shan understood what was the true meaning of endless growth and multiplying. Sometimes, even if one understood some things, they wouldn't understand it unless they experienced it themselves. It's like this. Tung Shan was holding the baby girl in one hand, and his other hand was subconsciously performing a fist technique. Shan, he suddenly shouted. Tung Shan was shocked and woke up. He turned around and saw that it was his father, Tung Yongfan. Tung Shan glared at him and said angrily, "You're practicing martial arts while holding a baby? What if the baby falls or gets hurt?" As he spoke, Yuan Lan immediately took the baby girl from Tung Shan's arms. Wah! The baby was so frightened that he began to cry. Oh. Good boy, don't cry. Yuan Lan was coaxing the baby. Tung Shan couldn't help but scratch his head awkwardly when he saw his parents' expression. Actually, he had just touched the threshold of the wood elemental Tao that he had been searching for. He could not help but immerse himself in practicing his fist art. However, compared to his daughter's safety, it wouldn't be too late to study the wood element fist in the future. Although he had missed a chance to gain enlightenment. At least understand the feeling. I found a threshold. Tung Shan already had a rough idea of the first move of the wood element fist. Voila! The originally pitter-pattering rainstorm gradually subsided. That's strange. When the baby was about to be born, the rain kept pouring. Now that the baby is born, the rain has subsided. Tung Yunlong raised his head and looked at the sky. He then turned around and looked at Tung Shan with a smile. Shan, it seems that your daughter is not ordinary. Yes, she is. Tung Shan added in his heart. Hugging her helped me break through the threshold of the wood elemental Tao. At this moment, creak! The door opened. Li Jun, whose face was slightly pale, actually walked out. Little Jun, Tung Shan hastily walked over. Li Jun smiled and shook her head. I'm fine. It's just that my body is slightly weak. However, it won't affect me much. After all, Li Jun was an innate expert. She had also taken the scarlet fruit wine. Little Jun, Yuan Lan smiled and handed the baby girl to Li Jun. Come, let mother give you a hug. Li Jun held the baby girl and smiled. Shan, have you decided on a name? Li Jun raised her head and looked at Tung Shan. They had thought a lot about the name of the child. Tung Shan looked at the baby girl and looked up at the sky. At this moment, the rain had almost stopped. This summer rainstorm came and went quickly. It was really not a lie, since it was raining when she was born. Moreover, it helped me understand the wood elemental Tao. Then, this child shall be named Lin. The word rain above and the word wood below. The rain watered the forest, causing the trees to grow and multiply. Tung Shan immediately rejected the name he had thought of before and came up with this name, Tung Hong Lin, his daughter's name. Tung Hong Lin? Lin? Li Jun nodded with satisfaction and looked down at the daughter in her arms. She smiled and said, Lin, this is the name your father gave you. It sounds nice, right? At the side, Tung Shan couldn't help but whisper in Li Jun's ear, Little Jun, take good care of Lin. I will go into seclusion first. I just had an epiphany. If it takes too long, I'm worried. Li Jun froze. Seclusion? Father went into seclusion as soon as the child was born? Okay, go. Li Jun also understood that it was best to comprehend the Tao at the moment of enlightenment. The longer it was delayed, the more vague the memory would be. After talking for a short while, Tung Qingshan's epiphany had weakened a lot. Whoosh! Tung Qingshan immediately left and rushed toward Tung Qingshan's secret room beside the East Flower Garden. Qingshan, where are you going? Tung Yongfan shouted because he didn't hear him. He is going to do something important, Li Jun said hastily. The child was just born. What could be more important than this? Tung Yongfan was slightly dissatisfied. Thereupon, on the first day that Tung Qingshan's daughter, Tung Qingshan, was born, Tung Qingshan went into seclusion to cultivate. The birth of Tung Qingshan's daughter was a happy event. In the next few days, many friends who were close to Tung Qingshan, whether they were from Tungjia village or Gui Yuan sect, came to see Tung Qingshan's daughter. Many people came to give gifts to see Tung Qingshan's daughter. However, what surprised them was Tung Qingshan, the father, was not here. Qingshan is really unreasonable. The child was just born, but he is already busy with his own business, many elders of Tungjia village said. On the 7th day of the child's birth, Li Jun was sitting by the pond. Beside her was a cradle, and in the cradle was a baby girl. Li Jun gently rocked the cradle and smiled at her daughter. The two maids beside her also smiled and chatted with Li Jun. Madam. Tung Shou and Yang Dong ran over. Li Jun looked at the two in confusion and asked, Shou, why are you here? There are some matters. Just as Tung Shou opened his mouth, Yang Dong interrupted and said with a smile, Madam, has teacher come out of seclusion? Not yet. Li Jun shook her head. Yang Dong couldn't help but show a hint of anxiety, but he still said in a low voice, Madam, when teacher comes out, send someone to inform us. All right, I will tell your teacher. Li Jun nodded. Yang Dong immediately pulled Tung Shou and left. Madam, there seems to be something important. The slightly taller maid beside her said. Li Jun nodded and looked in the direction of Tung Qingshan's secret room. She couldn't help but feel anxious. Why hasn't he come out of seclusion after such a long time? Is he going to go into seclusion for a few months like he did in the forbidden area of Bright Moon Island? Li Jun could only endure and continue to take care of the child. When the sky gradually turned dark, a figure walked over from afar. Qingshan. Li Jun hastily stood up, and her eyes lit up. I'm really sorry for the past few days. Tung Qingshan walked over with a smile. He first lowered his head and looked at the baby girl in the cradle. He couldn't help but praise. Little Jun, Lin is much more beautiful than when she was born. Look at that little face. That nose. Children grow the fastest at this stage. By the way, Qingshan, how was your seclusion in the past 7 days? Li Jun couldn't help but ask. Tung Qingshan bent down and carefully picked up his daughter. At the same time, he said, the 7 days of seclusion wasn't as effective as the enlightenment. I painstakingly pondered for 7 days and only created the first and second moves of the wood element fist. I couldn't create the third move no matter how hard I tried. It's a pity if I wasn't interrupted. If you weren't interrupted, would you have thrown Lin away while practicing? Li Jun looked at Tung Qingshan angrily. Of course, Lin is more important. Tung Qingshan frowned slightly. However, the Tao of the 5 elements. However, the 5 elemental Tao, I'm the worst at it. This time, it was based on a trace of enlightenment from before and years of pondering. He had finally created 2 styles in one go. However, the 9 forms of the fist technique were the easiest at the beginning. The further you go, the harder it gets. Based on my current speed, I feel that I can comprehend the wood elemental Tao. It's 10 times slower than the fire elemental Tao and the earth elemental Tao, Tung Qingshan said helplessly. Even if Tung Qingshan practiced boxing in his previous life, even if he had studied the celestial jade annulus and the 36 splitting mountain forms, he would not be able to do so. However, in the end, it was impossible for him. The Tao of the 5 elements was easy for him. 10 times slower? How long will it take? Li Jun asked worriedly. Maybe Tung Qingshan shook his head and said, "Take my water elemental Tao, for example. If Pei Sin hadn't taught me to start with the Tao of life and death, I wouldn't have been able to cultivate the water elemental Tao. I'm afraid it'll take me another 2 or 3 years. As for the wood elemental Tao, it was already so difficult to cross the threshold. In the future, I'm afraid that creating a new style will be more difficult, unless I have a few more epiphanies." Tung Qingshan grinned. Clearly, he was laughing at his own words. Epiphanies could only be encountered by chance. How could they be encountered so easily? That is to say, Qingshan, it will be very difficult to improve your strength in a short period of time? Li Jun asked. Yes. Tung Qingshan nodded. Currently, I control 80% of the power of the heavens and earth. Increase my physical strength. If I want to improve, I can only improve the wood elemental Tao. However, according to my estimations, it will take at least 10 or 20 years. It's not very possible for me to achieve mastery in the wood elemental Tao. Li Jun could not help but nod. On the path of comprehending the Tao, one has to be down to earth and take it one step at a time. Tung Qingshan smiled faintly. Now, my goal is to comprehend the wood elemental Tao. Then I will succeed in all the 5 elemental Taos. Only then will I have the qualifications to work hard to enter the insightful emptiness realm. The further one went, the more difficult it would be. And now, Tung Qingshan had encountered the most difficult of the 5 elemental Taos. This is the 2nd chapter. There's still the 3rd chapter. I think 99% of people will not be able to guess what I'll write in the 3rd chapter. Chapter 548. Ever since Tung Qingshan established the Xing Yi sect, the land of the 9 prefectures, which had been in constant conflict, suddenly quieted down. Even the Heavenly God Palace didn't make any big moves. For a time, the land of the 9 prefectures welcomed a period of peace. Time flew by. Spring and summer alternated year after year. 16 years later, in the county city of Wuhan County, in the Spring Rain restaurant, a restaurant that could be found in almost every big county city in Yangzhou, it was currently noon. The first floor was filled with customers from all over the world who had gathered together, and the noise was unceasing. However, what was strange was that many of the customers in the tavern carried spears with them. The spear was a weapon that was very difficult to practice. In the land of the 9 prefectures, it was very unorthodox to use a spear. Most people carried swords and sabers. However, in this Spring Rain restaurant, the number of guests who carried spears was much higher than those who carried swords and sabers. Haha, Brother Wang. The 2 of us can be thousands of li apart, yet come together and go to the same place. This is fate. Come, let's have a toast. Come, brotherly, cheers. The 2 young men immediately clinked their wine glasses and downed the contents in one gulp. The 2 young men each carried a spear and placed it beside the table. One of the 2 young men wore a simple cloth robe with a piece of tiger skin on his waist. His hair was messy. As for the other young man, he was dressed in a green robe and appeared to be much more handsome and elegant. Brother Wang, come to think of it, we have arrived at Wuhan County. We are not far from the Great Yin Mountain. The young man in the green cloak smiled and said, "We have traveled thousands of li, and we are almost at the Great Yin Mountain. It is said that the Xing Yi sect in the Great Yin Mountain has hundreds of thousands of internal martial arts cultivators. The Blood Wolf Army. I can't wait to see it even in my dreams. Yes, the scene of hundreds of thousands of people practicing internal martial arts." The eyes of the young man in the tiger skin glowed as he said, "I will be one of them. Yes, we will be one of them." The young man in the green cloak raised his cup again and said, "Come, let's have a toast. Cheers." The young man in the tiger skin raised his head and drank another cup. Speaking of which, the tiger-skinned young man said hatefully, "That 3rd brother of mine really has no ambition at all. He practiced the tiger form fist, and his strength was quite impressive. In the past, I told my 3rd brother that if I became stronger in the future, I would travel thousands of li to the Great Yin Mountain and become a disciple of the Xing sect. He had learned the profound internal martial art and became an expert of his generation. However, my third brother was actually attracted by the so-called benefits of Emperor Yu's Hall and actually joined Emperor Yu's Hall. Oomph. The cultivator of the internal martial art had switched to the Taoist school. Even if he was powerful, it was only temporary. Your future achievements will be limited. Of course, the green-cloaked young man said. Compared to the Xing sect, Emperor Yu's Hall is nothing. The 100,000 Blood Wolf soldiers of the Xing sect had the lowest entry requirement. They were all second-rated martial artists. It was said that only first-rated warriors would fight for the position of corporal. This was a truly invincible army. This time, when I go to the Xing sect, I must join the Blood Wolf army. Yes, Blood Wolf army, let's go in together. The young man with the tiger skin raised his wine cup and said, "Come, brotherly. Let's drink to join the Blood Wolf army together." Cheers. The two hot-blooded young men had traveled thousands of li from other prefectures. The journey had been arduous. They had either joined a caravan as a guard or used other methods. They had traveled all the way and finally arrived here. They only had one goal. They wanted to go to the holy land of all the cultivators of the internal martial art in the land of the 9 prefectures, the Xing sect of the Great Yin Mountain. You too. Suddenly, a voice rang out. With a bang, the table was slammed by a palm. The two young men who were drinking couldn't help but turn to look at the person who had just arrived. They saw a tall and muscular young man wearing a purple cloak. He carried a saber on his back and had a reserved look in his eyes. He scanned the two young men and sneered. "When I came in just now, I heard the two of you saying, 'Emperor Yu's Hall is not as good as the Xing sect.' Oomph, you can't say such nonsense." "What's wrong?" The young man with the tiger skin suddenly stood up. He was slightly taller than his opponent. He stared at his opponent fiercely and shouted, "We are talking here. It has nothing to do with you, pretty boy. Emperor Yu's Hall is powerful, but the Xing sect is a place for cultivators of the internal martial art. Who in the world can stop the 100,000 Blood Wolf army?" The founder of the Xing sect was the youngest person to reach the emptiness realm in the history of the world. The eldest martial brother of the Xing sect is nicknamed Xiongshou. He is so young, but he is already ranked in the heavenly ranking. Although he is ranked at the bottom, how old is our eldest martial brother? And in just 16 years, the Xing sect has the most powerful Blood Wolf army in the land of the 9 prefectures. The green-cloaked young man glanced at the person who provoked him and said, "Cultivating the internal martial art is the most promising path." Oomph. The young man with the saber on his back smiled coldly and said, "A sect with only 16 years of history and an emptiness realm expert dares to compete with the oldest sect, Emperor Yu's Hall, which was founded by the omnipotent expert, Emperor Yu. Io. If Emperor Yu's Hall is powerful enough, why would they still use small favors to let a large number of internal martial art cultivators join Emperor Yu's Hall?" The young man with the tiger skin laughed strangely. "Not long, just 16 years. The Xing sect is stronger than Emperor Yu's Hall. This is called strength. Do you understand?" The purple-cloaked young man with the saber on his back became even more furious. "Oomph. If you are so powerful, let's have a competition." The purple-cloaked young man was so angry that he immediately drew his saber. "Let's have a competition. Who's afraid of who?" The young man with the tiger skin suddenly grabbed the long spear beside the table. "Customers, customers." The innkeeper saw that the situation was bad and immediately ran over. "Get out of the way. If you break anything, I will compensate you." The purple-cloaked young man glared at the innkeeper. The innkeeper laughed and did not interfere. Immediately, the many customers who were originally eating in the restaurant began to cheer in fear of chaos. At the same time, they moved their tables away and watched the fight from the sidelines. It was forbidden to kill in the city, but it was fine to have a competition. Moreover, the real experts would run away after killing. The city guards came too late. "Let me show you the mountain-breaking saber art of Emperor Yu's Hall." The purple-cloaked young man held his saber and said coldly, "With his spear art, We have only fought tigers and wild boars in the mountains. Country tricks. The young man with the tiger skin held his spear horizontally and said, Brotherly, watch to the side. Watch how I deal with this arrogant brat. Brotherly smiled and moved to the side. The two of them were guards in the same caravan and knew each other's strength. Brotherly had to admit that the spear art of the young man with the tiger skin who only knew the country tricks was slightly stronger than his. Make your move. The purple-cloaked young man said confidently. Oh. The young man with the tiger skin grinned and shouted, Watch my spear. As he spoke, he spun the great spear in his hand and attacked his opponent like a huge snake coming out of its hole. Clang! The purple-cloaked young man swung his saber like lightning. The spear and saber clashed. Humph! The young man with the tiger skin took a step back from the impact. He then squatted down and swept horizontally. The purple-cloaked young man leaped up as lightly as a swallow. Whoosh! The young man with the tiger skin lifted his long spear up. Break! 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 The purple-cloaked young man roared. The saber in his hand had a shocking aura. As he dived down, he slashed 3 times. The first slash broke the long spear, and the second slash reached the front of the young man with the tiger skin. The young man hastily threw the long spear in his hand, and the long spear smashed forward. At the same time, a fierce look appeared on his face as he leaped up like a ferocious tiger. Clang! After the second slash broke the long spear, the third slash slashed towards the young man with the tiger skin. The body of the young man with the tiger skin twisted strangely. He wanted to defeat his opponent at the risk of getting injured. Cheat! The long spear that suddenly stretched out blocked the third saber strike. Clang! After the third slash was blocked, the purple-cloaked young man dodged the claw attack of the young man with the tiger skin. He then sneered and said, You said that the Xing-Yi sect is stronger than Emperor Yu's Hall. I think you are about the same age as me. If that guy didn't shamelessly interfere, you would have been crippled even if you didn't die. If I'm crippled, you will die. The young man with the tiger skin was like a ferocious tiger. The close combat of the internal martial art was famous in the land of the 9 prefectures. Hey, purple cloak guy, you have already joined Emperor Yu's Hall and learned the saber art. These 2 people have yet to join the Xing-Yi sect. You have only learned the tiger form fist art by yourself. You only won by 1 move. Why are you so proud? This is Yangzhou, not Yuzhou. A green-cloaked girl wrinkled her nose and sneered as she walked down the stairs. This girl had an ordinary appearance, but she was delicate and pretty. Mind your own business. The purple-cloaked young man frowned. I'm just teaching you a lesson. Don't be arrogant in Yangzhou. With this, the green-cloaked girl picked up the great spear that had been sent flying. The girl held the long spear with one hand and exerted a bit of force. The long spear seemed to have a life of its own as it pierced towards the purple-cloaked young man. You overestimate yourself. The purple-cloaked young man sneered. His body moved, and he slashed with his sharp blade. Chi! The moment the tip of the long spear and the blade collided, the purple-cloaked young man's facial expression changed drastically. He felt a strange, rotating force that made him lose control of his blade. Pooh! The tip of the long spear stopped right in front of the purple-cloaked young man's throat. The purple-cloaked young man's face turned pale. 1 move. He was defeated with just 1 move. Good. How dare the people of Emperor Yu's Hall be arrogant in Yangzhou? Good spear technique. Immediately, many people in the restaurant cheered. In a land of the 9 prefectures, the concept of region was very important. The people of Yangzhou were proud of the Xing-Yi sect and the Gui Yuan sect. You're still far from it. After the green-cloaked girl finished speaking, she threw the spear shaft to the young man whose eyes were shining. Again, thump, thump, thump. He went up to the 2nd floor. In a private room on the 2nd floor, the green-cloaked girl and a blue-cloaked girl were sitting together. The blue-cloaked girl said with a bitter face, Miss, we sneaked out. Don't cause trouble. Why don't we go back to the Great Yin Mountain? No. The green-cloaked girl laughed. It's rare that my father went into seclusion. He said he wanted to create the 9th move. That's why I took the opportunity to escape. How could this young lady go back so easily? Don't worry. I learned my disguising skills from my genius father. Even if my mother was in front of me, she wouldn't be able to recognize me. End of the 3rd chapter. P.S. Twilight of the Deities 2 is out. The 3rd server will be released on Chidian at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 25th. The controls are much better than the previous version. It's very fun. After Tomato finished writing, he planned to go and play. If you have time, you can go and play. Most importantly, if you play well, you will get some coins as a reward. As for the reward of coins, everyone can subscribe to Tomato's book. _carrot if you want to play. You can go to Chidian's game channel. Chapter 549. Oh, the blue-clothed girl nodded and whispered, "Miss, what powerful fist art is the sovereign creating in seclusion?" I remember that he had been in seclusion for a long time, 3 years ago. I don't know. The green-clothed girl frowned and shook her head, but father has been in seclusion for a few times these years. It's all because of this 9th fist art. It seems that this fist art is extremely difficult to create. Forget it. Let's not care about this. Let's take a stroll around Wuan County after we finish our meal. We'll leave Wuan County tomorrow. The blue-clothed girl nodded. Leave Wuan County? Where to? We'll see. The green-clothed girl smiled casually. Swoosh! A white bird flew in from the window and landed on the green-clothed girl's shoulder. Little White must be hungry. The blue-clothed girl smiled at the white bird. Little White. The green-clothed girl picked up a small piece of meat with her chopsticks and placed it in front of the sharp beak of the white bird. The white bird actually pecked the meat twice and swallowed it in 2 or 3 bites. This bird was raised by the green-clothed girl when she was young. It was very obedient. Jiangning County's Great Yin Mountain. It was noon, but the foot of the Great Yin Mountain was filled with people. The official road had been widened. There were even many luxurious mansions and buildings at the foot of the Great Yin Mountain, making it look very prosperous. The Great Yin Mountain was very famous in the land of the 9 prefectures, because this was the holy land for internal martial arts cultivators. Xing Yi Sect, Great Yin Mountain. The most special place was the East Flower Garden. Young Master. Young Master. A handsome young man was walking in the East Flower Garden. The maids in the East Flower Garden greeted the young man with a smile. They seemed to be very familiar with him. However, they didn't feel like master and servant to each other. The young man smiled and greeted the maid beside him. Sister Chunlan, you are more beautiful than last time. Young master is so sweet. The maids also joked. Where's my mother? The young man asked. At the flower garden, waiting for the sovereign to come out of seclusion, the maid named Chunlan answered. The young man nodded and hurried to the flower garden. He grew up here, so he couldn't be more familiar with the East Flower Garden. He could find the flower beds, even with his eyes closed. Soon, he walked through a corridor and entered a courtyard. Soon, he arrived at a courtyard filled with flowers. In this courtyard, the purple flowers were gathered in one place, and the yellow flowers were gathered in another. Entering the courtyard was like entering a sea of flowers. A woman dressed in loose white clothes was standing in the middle of the flower bed, stepping on the flowers like a fairy as she practiced a set of fist techniques. Mother, the youth immediately called out. The woman who was practicing her fist technique spun around and gracefully landed on the bluestone floor. This white-clothed woman was Li Jun compared to 16 years ago. The current Li Jun was more graceful and mature. There's also a hint of gentleness in his eyes. His entire person was like a warm jadeite, making people feel at peace. Hong Wu, you're back. Li Jun walked over with a smile. There was a hint of affection in her eyes. Not long after she gave birth to her daughter, Hong Lin, she became pregnant again and gave birth to her son, Hong Wu. It was named Wu to commemorate the time when Teng Qingshan and Li Jun were in Wuan County. Secondly, it was also a form of hope. In the land of the 9 prefectures, men needed peerless strength. Teng Qingshan also hoped that his son could possess absolute power. However, sometimes the development of things was completely different from what one imagined. His daughter, Honglin, was very obedient in front of her father, Tung Qingshan, but she was very naughty in secret. However, it was undeniable that Honglin was very interested in internal martial arts. Honglin had been practicing fist techniques since she was young. After more than 10 years of practice, she had actually reached the pinnacle of the post-liminary realm. Only the meridians on his face had not been opened yet. Moreover, Honglin was even more proficient in fist techniques. Among the 5 elemental fists of Xing Yi martial arts, Honglin was most proficient in the bursting fist. Tung Qingshan had high hopes for his son, Hanwu. However, although Hanwu had been practicing boxing seriously, as he grew older, he didn't know how to do it. Hanwu, on the other hand, liked some things about the Qingshan Guild Hall more. Today, the Qingshan Guild Hall was a super existence in the business circle of the land of the 9 prefectures. The Tangible Will sect supported it secretly. In addition, there were a large number of internal martial arts practitioners all over the land of the 9 prefectures. In addition, its foundation was in the prosperous Yangzhou. The Qingshan Guild Hall now operated restaurants, illicit salt, escort agencies, and many other businesses. Although Hanwu wasn't as good as his father, Tung Qingshan, in terms of boxing, he was still above average. In addition, he was taught by the famous teacher, Tung Qingshan, and had a good environment. In addition, she was personally taught by Tung Qingshan, and the environment was good. His strength was already somewhat close to that of a first-rated warrior. Of course, compared to his sister. Obviously, there was a big difference. However, Hanwu was quite talented in business. This man can't fight against the heavens. What happens to children doesn't follow the wishes of their parents. Tung Qingshan could only sigh helplessly. What happens to children doesn't always follow the wishes of their parents. Tung Qingshan could only sigh helplessly. Mother, father hasn't come out of seclusion yet? Hanwu looked at the tall martial arts training room not far away. Yes. Li Jun smiled helplessly as she looked at the newly built martial arts training room 10 years ago. Your father has been in seclusion for about 12 days. Who knows when he will come out? But in a month. Even if your father doesn't succeed, he will come out. To create the 9th move of the wood elemental Dao, Tung Qingshan had gone into seclusion many times. Obviously, among the 5 elemental Daos, Tung Qingshan had a hard time with the wood elemental Dao. Oh, by the way, mother. Hanwu looked around. I didn't see sister when I came back. What about your sister? Li Jun shook her head and smiled. You don't know your sister's temper. When your father is here, she doesn't dare to run around. Your father can catch her easily. However, when your father goes into seclusion, he didn't have time to care about her. I don't have your father's domain. If I'm not careful, this sly girl will drag Xiao Xiao out. Hanwu smiled. Sister is good at disguising herself. It's really hard to find her. Suddenly, Li Jun turned her head in surprise and looked at the martial arts training field. What's wrong, mother? Hanwu was puzzled. Something's wrong. Li Jun stared at the martial arts training room carefully. Through the crack of the door, she could faintly see a faint green light that was almost undetectable. At this moment, a hearty laughter came from the martial arts training room. The laughter echoed in the sky above the East Flower Garden. Roar! A roar came from the distance of the Great Yin Mountain. It's Uncle Saber Wu. Hanwu looked into the distance in surprise. On the other hand, Li Jun's eyes were glowing as she stared at the huge stone door of the martial practice room. With a rumbling sound, the 2 huge stone doors began to slowly open to both sides. A tall figure walked out from the dark martial practice room. He wore a loose black robe, had long hair, and had a determined face. It was Tung Qingshan. Compared to 16 years ago, he hadn't changed much. However, he was more calm and reserved. Occasionally, there would be a hint of threatening light in his eyes. He was the founder of the Xing Yi sect, which played an important role in the land of the 9 prefectures. He was also the leader of the Gui Yuan sect, one of the 7 supreme sects in the land of the 9 prefectures. He had been in this position for a long time and was respected as a grandmaster. Tung Qingshan's temperament gradually changed. Little June, Tung Shan looked at his wife with a smile. Then, he looked at his son and asked, Ah Wu, when did you come back? I just came back today, Hong Wu answered. Tung Shan nodded with a smile. Hong Wu was younger than his son, but his son was much more mature than his daughter. However, his son was obviously much more mature than his daughter when it came to dealing with people, and he didn't make her worry. Did Lin Lin run out? Tung Shan asked with a smile. Yes, she ran out right after you went into seclusion. Li Jun walked over and said. Tung Shan shook his head and smiled. I sensed that she ran out from the cultivation room, but I couldn't do anything about it. Forget it. Did you find out where she is now? I asked Little Qing. Li Jun answered. Li Jun replied. Little Qing has also gone to ask her subordinates. I reckon that there should be results within these 2 days. Oh, Tung Shan nodded. Han Wu, who was at the side, couldn't help but whisper, Father, have you created the 9th move of the wood element fist? Huh? Tung Shan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Look at your father's smile. Can't you tell? Li Jun couldn't help but laugh as well. She was happy for Tung Shan. After all, Tung Shan had spent a lot of time cultivating the wood elemental Tao, especially the 9th move. He had gone into seclusion several times and only managed to achieve a breakthrough today. After spending 16 years cultivating the wood elemental Tao, Tung Shan finally reached the culmination stage. Now, Tung Shan had finally reached the culmination stage of the emptiness realm. 100% of the power of the heavens and the earth, combined with the strength of my body. In the land of the 9 prefectures, only the insightful emptiness realm experts are stronger than me. Tung Shan was very confident. He didn't just spend 16 years cultivating the wood elemental Tao. He also spent a lot of time researching and sculpting the spear art. Now, Tung Shan asked himself, no one under the insightful emptiness realm could surpass him. I have already reached the culmination stage of the emptiness realm. In the culmination stage of the emptiness realm, that is the insightful emptiness realm. How can I reach the insightful emptiness realm? Tung Shan thought to himself. That day, Tung Shan, Li Jun, and Han Wu had a rare meal together. At night, in the study room, Tung Shan would sometimes practice his fist art in the study room. Sometimes he would walk to the desk and record the essence of the fist art. Shan, are you creating a fist art? Li Jun walked in from the side door of the study room and asked with a smile. Yes, reviewing the old to learn the new. Actually, when I was creating the fist art, I had a clearer understanding of the 5 elemental Taos. Tung Shan smiled and said, Today, I completed the wood elemental Tao. I have a better understanding of the bursting fist of the 5 elemental fists of Xing martial arts. I thought of 2 different ways of practicing the bursting fist. I need to perfect it first before recording it down. Suddenly, Tung Shan raised his head and looked towards the south. What's wrong? Li Jun froze. Little Blue is here. Tung Shan smiled and strode towards the door of the study room. Chapter 1 arrives. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.